And I believe we are live.
Interesting.
Yep, we are. Cool.
That is indeed cool. Now the whole world can see your stream except for one person.
Oh, oops. I completely forgot. Applications. Entire stream was having the weird glitch thing. Hello.
Hello.
So tell us about the theories you were having, because I'm interested to see what you have gathered, Air King. There was an option in the playthrough I watched. I don't know if it was an option. I thought it was in the default game, but it showed the song name in the top right corner whenever a song was playing, and I thought that was really cool, but I haven't noticed it on here, and I don't know why.
Weird. I guess just look around for it?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything. Okay, so here are some of my theories that I have been sitting on for a little bit. Hedwig mentioned that she was back in a cell when she was telling the story, because she's said, I used to be an anchoress, so she's back in the cell, but she's not an anchoress anymore. So something happened to her. Is she taken prisoner? Is she blamed for the crime? We know for a fact that she at least survives the happenings of the story, so that's a positive. But she's captured again, and I think she said she backed away a little from religion. I'm not sure if that's exactly what she said, but she did mention that she's at least not an anchoress anymore. But she's still in a cell.
Right.
So is she imprisoned? And I'm trying to figure that whole thing out. Is there...
Maybe she's the warden, and she's keeping track of whoever is actually responsible for the crime. Maybe she's talking to them.
I believe she is. She mentioned that one of the nuns was behind the door. She said, I was in this very cell. I used to be in this cell, but it was for a much more holy reason, I believe, is what she said. And she was mentioning...
being an anchoress is much more holy than being a warden of our prison.
That could be true. She is on the other end. But I don't think that's the case. She mentioned in one of her things that when she was talking about the room, she was talking about the nun's room, and she mentioned that, well, I'm sure you know all this, but let me embellish the details a bit. Let me explain it to help my thought process. And in somewhere she says, I want to make this a guessing game. I don't know who you are, but you obviously know who I am, and I kind of want to see if this is... And I kind of want to guess who I'm talking to. So let's make a little game out of it. Don't tell me who you are. So I feel like if she was the warden, she would know who is in the cell. So I think she's the one trapped in the cell. I'm not sure.
That's fair.
I'm just gonna come right out and say it. Moira is kind of my biggest suspect at the moment. She just seems kind of chipper and cheery, and she's just so suspicious to me. I don't think it's her. I can't tell if she's like supposed to be a red herring because it's always the one you least expect or whatever. But it's just, yeah, I'm not even sure if we can trust her as a reliable narrator. Like she just feels like kind of out of it. It's so odd. I find her so intriguing. She's a fantastic character, but she's always so intriguing. I love hearing her thought process on things. It's so cool. But I don't even know if she is a reliable narrator. There are just so many things about her narration that are... they're not questionable. I trust the words that she's saying, but I don't trust her perception of things. I think everything she's telling is what she believes, but I don't know if that's what actually happened. She's just... Right. It's a bit hard to trust. It's hard to separate from her perception to the reality of the events. And let's see. Moira, she's just so suspicious to me. I literally have no reason to suspect her as of what you've seen. There are a couple things later on that make me very weird of her, but for right now, from what you've seen, she hasn't really done anything suspicious. She's just overly nice and happy and pleasant to be around. And there was the whole thing I was texting you about when it was the Mother Superior was saying everyone seems to agree it's Sable Boy, but then Moira is like, I don't think it was a Sable Boy during the conversation, and that just felt weird to me. So why would Mother Superior? Yeah,
I pretty much said it's either like that's either confirming her or making her more suspicious.
Yeah,
it's not like a neutral thing.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it made her, at least at this point, seem more innocent.
Yeah, that was a pretty interesting. I don't know. There's just a lot of... I'm gonna be trying to vocalize the theories I had at the point of the story that we're at, because I felt like I didn't really talk too much last stream, because I was just kind of reading it, because I feel awkward pointing out my theories for stuff that happens in the future. But I also have not finished this game yet, so I think it's going to be okay for me to theorize as well, and just like give my input on certain things, as long as I don't spoil the future events of Volume 1. So I'm going to be trying to spoil a bit. So I'm going to be trying to theorize a bit, but we'll see what happens. I believe... Oh, there was also something Air King mentioned in something. He said that there could be a lot of secret passages and stuff around because of the
old building.
Hmm?
Because it's an old building and they all have secret passages?
No, because the building layout is so weird. Because it was apparently following two different layout plans. One was the St. Gall's plan and one was the Roman plan or something. Or maybe it was supposed to be the St. Gall's plan, but they got turned around in the storm, so they don't know what they were building half the time. So it might have secret passageways intentionally or not. And it just has a whole different layout than most abbeys. So I found that to be a very interesting thing to bring up, because I was wondering why she would bring up the layout when she first got out. I thought that was a very interesting detail. So knowing that this specific abbey does not follow the rest of the abbey's layout could lead to more secret or hidden rooms. Not even secret or hidden rooms, but just rooms that no one knows about and are being hidden purposely by someone, and they are meant to be shown, but just hidden by a bookcase or something, because they don't know because every layout is supposed to be the same, but this specific abbey, so they don't really question it. But I don't know. I'm just so intrigued by certain things in the story.
Yeah. That is fair, valid, real, true.
Go away. I didn't know what to say. The woman who had come into the hagioscope so many times, who had seemed so interested in me and my way of life, had been hiding an entire function of my job from me? Why? It made no sense. The already foggy picture I had of Catherine in my mind was losing definition. I need to get this out of my way.
What is this?
Some weird Google News thing popped up, and it's blocking chat.
Yeah. I gotta see if I remember my voices. I should.
There we go. Not true. I don't believe Umi Neko has hidden rooms. That's like a whole plot point in the game.
Yeah, I was gonna say, even I know that.
That's a whole big plot point in the game. They're like bringing like some. Never mind. That's spoilers. The already foggy picture I had of Catherine in my mind was losing definition. I suppose I could start by just asking the others about Catherine.
Be careful. That could raise suspicions rather quickly.
Well, I'm taking over her old role. It would make sense to everyone if I asked about her, I think. I should know the size of the shoes I'm meant to fill.
As long as you're careful to frame it that way.
Of course. I just don't understand. Why would Catherine withhold my letters? The superior let out a heavy sigh and brought a hand to her temple. She looked as if she aged 5 years over the course of this conversation.
I don't know. The more I hear, the less I understand.
That's exactly how I feel.
I know this is the right thing to do. But I was not expecting things to get this tangled quite so quickly.
Well, I will do my best to untangle things, Abbess. I tried my utmost to sound authoritative. Maybe I really was trying out new personalities. The superior gave me a tired smile in response.
Bless you. Take a wander around the grounds and talk with some of the sisters. They should be taking most of the rest of their day for their work, but I'm sure they'll make time to chat.
I gave a little bow of my head and turned to leave through the large oaken door. I stepped out into the empty hallway. I had no idea where to start looking for people, but I realized now was a decent time as any to explore the abbey of my own and get my bearings. Truth be told, I had no idea how huge this place actually was when I was in my cell. I had a few diagrams of monasteries and cathedrals in my books, but those were just little lines on a page. Now that I was actually wandering around an abbey myself, one that seemed to eschew the careful layouts I had read about, I found myself marveling at the tiniest things. Most of the stonework was quite old. I love the music in this game, it's so beautiful. I had noticed that some walls lining the path of the bath to the kitchen were in disrepair. I didn't know quite how to describe it, but it wasn't just dilapidation. Some parts of this place just looked older. Is that better?
Not that beautiful if you're turning it down.
Well, Eric said it was loud.
The chat is complaining.
Yeah.
That's solid. Also, are you streaming the whole desktop to me, or just the window?
Just the window.
Okay.
The desktop?
Yeah. I might just be paranoid, but I I thought I saw some flickering just a little bit.
Oh no.
But I'm not worried about it yet, because I'm very frazzled after whatever the heck my final was today.
It could have been because I opened the pause menu.
Could be.
Older, squared off, less detailed. The chapel, for instance, while certainly very tall inside, felt very simple. A big box, really, but I walked around on the grounds. I noticed that certain sections of the abbey were meticulously detailed. There were little flourishes in the corners of the stonework, bits and pieces that didn't seem to serve any particular function but certainly caught an eye. And then I thought, maybe that was the function. I hadn't seen many other buildings before, but I could immediately spot a difference between parts of the monastery. I just really love the detail that you can see the grave. It's pretty cool. I reached for the comparison I could make. I connected it to books, of course. Some parts of the abbey felt like they had been built the way an Old Testament had been translated. Functional. Blunt. Constructed out of bare necessities to make their point immediately. In the story of Elisha I was relying earlier, the distance between the bears tearing those children apart and Elisha arriving in Bethel is 2 lines or so. Other parts of the abbey were more majestic. Pretty. Perhaps there's a structural reason for the way things look, but the look is what draws you in. You can gaze at it and ponder what it means rather than understanding its purpose immediately. Maybe it's just decorative. Maybe it's decorative and functional, or perhaps the decoration is the function. It's a long-winded and aesthetically interesting, like something Aquinas wrote. Romanesque versus Gothic. Well, yes, that's exactly what I was getting to. I apologize for rambling. I'm trying to illustrate how my mind is piecing my new world together after being locked in a room for years and years. I suppose I'm the Aquinas between the two of us, aren't I? Yeah, she's relaying the story to someone. So it's not just like she's telling the story to us, she's telling the story to someone. It's like it's a testimony, which is very interesting to me.
Interesting.
Not in talent, by God, but certainly in method. That's okay. You can be Roman, and I'll be Gothic. I took a turn that hadn't made before down some stairs. I trod carefully, still embarrassed about my little adventure with Catherine that morning. I realized I was stepping into the undercoff, which meant the cellars must be nearby. I wandered through the croft until I heard voices echoing around. They sounded strained. I followed them until I spotted barrels. Lots and lots of barrels. I walked through the rows of casks in awe. This was a lot of wine. I could see 2 figures ahead of me.
I gotta try to remember my voice. Was this just the more, like, almost the Suki voice? Like, oh.
Yeah. I think so.
Yeah. I remember other girl.
Laura.
Adora, yeah. Or whatever her name is.
Laura.
One of the 2. Oh, hello, Hedwig.
Hello, you 2. Did Marta put you on cellar duty?
Oh, no. I just came down here to talk to Flora. I was on cellar duty?
Is everything alright?
Oh. Everything is just fine. We were just talking about chess. I am very competitive, and sometimes I just raise my voice, I suppose. Yeah. Are you good at chess, Hedwig?
I've never played, actually.
Of course. What a silly question for me to ask. Who would you have played against?
Thank you. That's another thing I was bringing up. Maybe one of the men from the start of the story is in the Abbey. I do not think that's the case. I don't remember specifically, but I believe in that cutscene they mentioned Christmas or December or something, and this takes place in November. So I think they are... I do think, because they mentioned going to this abbey, I believe it was this abbey. I don't know if they specify, but I'm pretty sure it's this abbey. That to lay low after if something goes wrong.
Assassination.
I'm not sure if they said after the assassination or just in case something goes wrong. So I do think that we will see one of those two gentlemen in the Abbey at some point, but I do not think they are here yet. I do think they will come in a future volume, maybe? I'm not entirely sure. But my understanding is that he is not here yet, so I believe all these nuns are women, to my knowledge so far. I'd be surprised if not.
That would make sense.
That's right.
You can play chess against yourself. But where's the fun in that? You get to be alone, for starters. No. That's such a waste of time. There is no romance in that.
Romance?
The thrill of competition. The heat of battle. Chivalry requires spectatorship. To do battle not with swords, but with wits. Romance takes two.
Wow, you certainly do get passionate about chess.
I can romance myself just fine, thank you very much. I do it all the time. Laura! Now you are just disrespecting the game.
I don't understand.
She's saying that you lost the game.
Well, anyway. Laura, I still demand a rematch. You will face me on the field of battle of the mind. And I will prove to you that your last victory was but a fluke. Fine. Whatever. If it'll get you out of my face. Tonight. We duel.
Adela lifted up an imaginary sword, then twirled it and sheathed it at her side.
Okay. Sure. Bye, my friend. If you are interested, Hedwig, I will teach you how to play one day. All you have to do is ask.
She gave me a smile and left down a long passage of barrels. Come to think of it, I might have an Alexander Neckham book that mentions
I don't care.
Right. I suppose that's something I could tell Adela sometime.
What do you want?
Oh, nothing. I'm just making the rounds, saying hello to everyone, you know?
So this is, what, your third introduction?
Sorry. Laura huffed and leaned against the casks lined up against the back wall.
Look, I'm sure you're really nice or whatever, but I don't volunteer down here for the conversation, understand?
You like to work alone?
Finally. Someone understand.
Well, I will be working alone a lot too, I think. So, do you have any advice?
Advice?
Yes.
Advice for working alone?
Certainly.
Well, for starters, you need to be by yourself.
Alright.
And then, once I'm by myself, I like to do my work. Why are you asking me for advice anyway? Aren't you like twice my age?
I'm barely a decade your senior, I'll have you know.
Close enough.
Marta had been right. I tried to change the subject to maintain composure. This is certainly a lot of wine.
Yeah. As you can see, I have a lot of work to do. Alone.
Is the wine here good?
I wouldn't know. I haven't gotten to try any. This batch will be the first the Superior has allowed me to taste.
We must have a very large vineyard nearby.
These aren't all ours.
Oh, really? Where are the other casks from?
You know, cask store probably. Some rich guy probably. Maybe this is a good environment for wine storage. Good for bringing out the flavor or whatever.
I see. Well, I shall leave you to it then.
Thank you.
It was nice chatting with you.
Yeah, nice meeting you for the third time.
I turned away to leave. I had had just about enough of that conversation. I had made it halfway back to the rows of barrels when I heard Flora call out to me.
Why did you want Catherine II's job so bad?
I didn't.
Really?
Yes, I promise. I turned to look at her. She was eyeing me up and down. I tried to give her as defiant a stare as I could muster in return.
Weird way of showing it. Breaking a 20-year-old vow to take a dead woman's work.
I wanted to tell her about Catherine's visits to my window. I wanted to tell her about the Superior had practically forced me to do this. I wanted to tell her that I was trying to help heal the wound that was making her act this way towards me. But I didn't. I couldn't. If you want to put it that way.
Sure feels like that's the way it is. How I'm putting it has nothing to do with it,
So it must seem. With that, I turned around again and left the undercroft. I wandered around the halls for a bit, trying to gather my thoughts. Adela was certainly passionate about chess, but there wasn't really the conversation I'd walked on in had. But was that really the conversation I'd walked in on been about? Certainly Adela had been there long enough to know Flora didn't like being bothered. She had made it clear to me immediately after all. It must have been something more important than that. No. This wasn't going to work if I started looking for reasons to suspect everyone every time I encountered them. I was going to need to strike a careful balance between searching for the answers and letting them come to me slowly. I'll go mad otherwise. Well, more mad.
To be fair, there's nothing more suspicious in a murder mystery than liking chess. So, Adela might be suspect number one right now.
Yeah, that's fair. I stepped into the outside path that led past the kitchen. I walked past the cozy rectory where we'd all met for luncheon. I followed a little path around the grounds. Eventually, I came to the side of the chapel. I stood back and gazed at the building, taking it all in. There was a pile of rubble next to the chapel, a blemish on an otherwise picturesque scene. Bits of splintered wood stuck up against odd angles, but they were rotted through. The stone itself was quite weathered as well. I looked perhaps as if extension of the church had been planned, but forgotten. Suddenly, out of the corner of my eye, I noticed a movement. Oh, hello there. Ah, Sister Margaret. I was just taking a stroll for the grounds. That's a good way to pass the time. Lots of nooks and crannies to explore around here. Yes, it certainly seems. I find myself quite overwhelmed. I think I would know most of the interesting passages and doors and whatnot around here. It's a little boggling. But honestly, I doubt anyone here knows every little secret. If you find anything interesting, let me know. We can compare notes.
I will. What's your favorite?
I don't think I know you well enough to tear that just yet.
Oh,
Nothing against you. We can work up to my favorite. I can tell you my second favorite if you'd like.
Go on then.
If you ever get hungry in the middle of the night, there's a secret way into the stores through the cellar.
Really? Where?
Now. Where's the fun in that?
Fair enough, I suppose.
It'll mean more if you find it yourself. Exploring this place is very enriching. You'll have a great time figuring it out. I promise.
I'll keep that in mind. By the way, at luncheon,
I would like nothing more than to skip over whatever topic you're about to preach here. Ask me what my favorite psalm is, or if I play any instruments. Anything else.
Do you play any instruments?
I'm not too shabby at the lute, now that you mention it.
Wow, I've never played any instruments. I imagine that's obvious, come to think of it.
You should try it. Catherine would have shoved one into your hands the minute you stepped out of the cell if she was still here, I'd wager.
Really now?
That's more or less the way it was for me when I got here. Hardly a minute after having my hair shorn, she was asking me all kinds of things. What I like to do, what I wanted out of life. Nobody got past her without trying something new.
She sounds like she was very inspirational.
She certainly had a lot of stars in her eyes. May she rest in peace.
May she rest in peace.
Well, this has been as pleasant as it had been maudlin. I'll speak to you later, Hedwig.
Until next time, Margaret.
She gave me a quick bow of the head and continued off towards the path I had come from. After taking another good look around the chapel, I looped around behind it. There I could see rows and rows of bushes and hedges, flower beds and vegetables. There were vines crawling up the walls of the building, surrounding the vast network of plants. This was Darcy's domain, then. In fact, I could see her and Eustace beside the door to what looked like a large shed, or some sort of hall. I picked up my pace. At the very least, these two would be nicer to me than Flora was. Or so I thought. Eustace looked slightly irritated when she noticed me. She stood up and brushed herself off as I approached.
Hello, I wanted to thank you for the gift.
Now is not really a great time.
What? Is something wrong?
No, just... I'm busy.
I glanced at Darcy. I realized she was looking even more out there than usual.
Is she okay?
Yes? As long as I'm watching her, anyway.
What did she...
Darcy was pacing around in a small circle. Her head was tilted skyward and she looked blissful.
She's having a vision.
She's what?
Rows and rows of bookshelves. Rows and rows of bookshelves. Rows and rows and rows of bookshelves.
Hold on.
Eustace dipped down to pick up a small ledger and quill she'd been sitting with.
The reader chooses a book. It is a book the reader has not read before. The reader chooses a book and opens the book.
What's in the book, Darcy?
Ink flashes like flame, and they hurt the reader so, but the reader pays no mind. Readers read and read the reader does, until the reader's eyes are burned, until every page is turned. Readers read and read the reader does.
Yes. Keep going. Stay with me, Dars.
How can you be so calm about this?
She's had this one before.
Readers read and others ask. We ask readers what they read. What if they've read what we need? Reading makes one wise indeed. Readers read and others ask, even if the flames do lash. Eustace scribbled all this down. She seemed perfectly collected. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. All of a sudden, Darcy stopped walking in her little circle. She began to wobble, and tears started rolling down her cheeks. Her blissful smile was gone.
This is new. What do you see now, Dars? What's happening?
Fire!
Yes, flames. You said that already. Anything else?
Oh, fire! Goat! Fire goat! Forgot.
I forgot what I was talking about.
Just another one of your visions. I'd say that tincture was a success.
Oh, good. Was it a nice one? It's hard to tell. She touched her face and looked slightly surprised by how damp her cheeks were. Was I crying because I saw the face of God and it was beautiful? Or was I crying because it was bad?
We'll talk about it later.
Darcy, how long have you been having visions? For a long time.
We really need to be going.
Yeah, I need to go sit down for a bit after having one of my vision tinctures, or everyone says I act too odd. So bye, I'll talk to you when I'm less odd. I love how her eyes are lowercase and she has very little punctuation. It's just so cute.
Yeah.
I love her.
There are no initial caps.
Eustace took Darcy by the arm and coaxed her back towards the main building of the Abbey. I stood there, stunned. I had of course read about mystics, but I'd never dreamed I would meet one, let alone see one in the middle of having a vision. I must admit that I'd not pictured Darcy as being quite so close to God as that. It was a little humbling. Then again, if Marjorie Kemp could be so gifted, why not Darcy? I spent some time alone in the garden. I could see rows of carrots, juicy-looking squashes, and plump parsnips. There were plenty of other things I didn't recognize too. I realized just how limited my diet had been in my cell, and I salivated at the thought of trying some new food. The flower beds were quite beautiful, and a mix of pleasant smells filled the air. I took a little stroll through the flower bushes. There was all a manner of colors and shapes that I couldn't identify. I stopped to smell a few. They were all lovely. There was one awkward, spindly-looking bush at the end of one of the hedgerows that looked out of place. It was slightly skeletal. The leaves looked too big for the plant. It drooped a little. As I got closer, I realized there were little berries on the end of the flowers. Against all better judgment, I reached a hand out, curious to see what they tasted like.
Don't touch that.
Oh, goodness, you made me jump.
Sorry? I wondered if you were still in the garden and came looking for you. I'm sure it's all very exciting, but don't go touching things willy-nilly.
That was very rude of me. I apologize.
It's fine. Just don't touch that plant, whatever you do.
Is it poisonous?
Extremely.
Why on earth is it here?
I'm no botanist, so I can't explain it properly, but the short of it is that it's useful in small doses.
How on earth can poison be useful?
Well, Moira says it could be used to make a good painkiller, for one thing. It was Catherine the First who begged Darcy to start tending it, though. Apparently it's all the rage in Italy. Drop a little bit of extract in your eyes to make them look, bigger, I suppose? Shinier.
That's absurd.
You won't get any argument from me, but that's why it's here.
Darcy really does a wonderful job with this garden.
She's brilliant. Darcy's our little Hildegard. Von Bingen. Did we switch our lines? I don't know.
No, I didn't.
Sorry. Is that someone you...
Oh, no, don't worry. I've read Hildegard.
That makes sense.
An expert with plants and a real visionary. Darcy's like her in several ways.
That's right.
Is she doing well after all that?
She's fine. She tries to have them on purpose. She has all sorts of different concoctions she's been tinkering with to try to enhance and understand her visions for years.
That's incredible.
It's certainly interesting.
Did Darcy know Catherine very well?
Catherine II, you mean? Yes, she thought Darcy was a genius.
Oh, nice.
Catherine II had a way of making everyone feel special. Sometimes to a fault, if you ask me. She encouraged everyone to try new things to see if they had any hidden talents.
That pudding you made for luncheon was very nice, by the way. Was that...
No, that recipe's all me. Well, all me and my book.
I see. Well, it was delicious.
I'm glad. Anyway, my point is, Catherine II was someone who couldn't leave well enough alone. She had many admirable traits. I miss her dearly. But it's true.
I don't follow. Eustace stared at me pointedly from behind her large glasses.
Be careful, Hedwig.
With that, she turned on her heel and left the garden. Beads of cold sweat were building on my forehead. I felt knocked entirely off balance. After a few moments of stunned silence, I staggered back through the flower beds towards the abbey. It was a little chilly outside now. It was getting later in the afternoon, and I presumed the dinner bell would be ringing at any moment. Eustace's words were still bouncing around in my head. I hoped that a meal might straighten me out the way luncheon had earlier in the day. I walked through the cloister. I remember that what the superior had said about the sword being left as a monument to Catherine. I stepped into the cloister grass and walked to the sword, somewhat apprehensively. Be careful, Hedwig. What had she meant? Did she know? The sword was indeed clean. It looked well weathered, but there was no blood on the blade. I dared not touch it, but I could tell the edge was still decently sharp. Be careful, Hedwig. How many of them knew? If Eustace suspected I was up to something, surely she would tell the others. The secret might already be out there. I heard a rustle of wings above me. I jerked my head up to see, cloaked in shadow, the barest glint of eyes. It's so cool. Man, I love this game. They disappeared in the shadows.
You might have mentioned that.
As soon as I was sure they were there. I scurried away from the sword, feeling a sudden rush of bravery. I started running towards the nearest staircase that might lead me to whoever had been watching me, and collided directly with Angela. I am so sorry.
There is to be no running in the halls.
I'm trying to remember the voice I gave her.
Did the superior not tell you that?
No. I really am sorry.
What are you in such a hurry for, anyway?
I was in the cloister, and I thought I saw someone watching me, so I was running to see who it was.
What on earth for?
To see
I don't know if they wanted to talk to me, perhaps.
Ah, of course. No one here seems to be able to resist your riveting conversation skills, I've noticed. What an exciting first day you've had. Has it been fun? Being paraded around like a daughter the Duke is desperate to marry off? Spare me. I can see right through your little act.
I don't...
I don't know. I don't know. Well, I do. I know exactly why you've joined us, all of a sudden. I'll take your silence as confirmation. You may have tricked the others, but I am no fool.
If that's the case, then why haven't you told them?
Because I do not care a whit what the others think. I just don't like meddlers, and I know a meddler when I see one. The Superior may not care about how this place is run, but I do. I will not let her entrust this place to a complete outsider.
Oh, what? I was at a total loss here. But at least now I could be honest with my confusion. You think I'm become the next superior? I'm not even close to the most senior sister here.
As if tradition matters here. Why else would you have been let free from your cell? Why else would you be taking meetings alone with her?
I'm just learning to be the new chronicler.
Yes, the Superior seems to think chroniclers make good superior material. She is a fool, but a determined fool. I'll give her that.
She cares a lot about this place.
Clearly. Hence why she set a mouse loose in the kitchen.
She stalked past me, turning her nose up. I stood there, shaking with anger for a moment. I wheeled around as she reached the bottom of the stairs. Who killed Catherine? I know I shouldn't have asked so bluntly, but I felt confident enough in Angela's ignorance to barrel ahead.
James Foreman, a nasty little stable hand who had his eyes on her ever since he started making deliveries to the Abbey. She rejected his advances. So he hacked her head off with the sword he carried in his cart for protection on the road. It was brutal, random, and obscene. Like most crimes are.
I cannot believe that.
You never met her. Why do you care?
It's my job to care.
Not yet, it isn't.
I was fuming, but I did feel a little twinge of satisfaction realizing that I'd thrown Angela off my real reason for being here. I knew she was wrong about Catherine, though. There was too many strange things going on, too much unsettling evidence to the contrary. Evidence like, well, I didn't actually have any evidence, did I? I just had whispers. Whispers telling me that something was very, very wrong here. I had agreed with the Superior at a mixture of obedience and pity, but now I was itching to find the truth and rub Angela's stuck-up face in it. Supper that night was a lot more subdued than luncheon. We all gathered around the rectory table, but the conversation didn't spark the same way. People seemed worn out from the various tasks of the day.
Small clusters of chatter broke out between little groups of people across the table, but mostly people ate their meals in silence. I was content with the state of affairs, at least for a moment. My plate was laden with wonderful-looking food from Darcy's garden, as well as a generous piece of chicken breast. I wolfed it all down in silence, trying to avoid eye contact from Angela, who was seated next to the superior at the head of the table once again. Kesselis's book on chess is supposed to be quite interesting.
Oh, I have heard. Eustace, do we have a translated copy? In English or Castilian, I mean. I would have to check. I'll take a look and give it to you in the... give it to you later. Spectacular!
After supper was Vespers. He'll be glad to know I didn't cough up any horrible black bile in the chapel this time. We chanted the evening prayers. It all felt very regimented. There was a certain peace in the proceedings. My head felt pleasantly empty and soft afterwards, free from the confusion and rage I had been alternating between earlier. When the office of Vespers was concluded, people trickled into the chapel one by one. Left to my own devices, I wasn't really sure what to do. I followed everyone out of the building into the cloister, but nobody turned around to ask what I was doing, if I'd like to join them, or anything of the sort. It felt like I'd already ceased to be of any interest to the congregation. Invisible. I trailed behind everyone. I wasn't actually sure what I wanted. Did I want to be included? Would that make my job harder or easier? Would it make me feel better or worse? Thoughts so far?
I don't know. It'd probably make her feel worse. She's not used to people yet.
Oblivious as always. Now or...
What? Me? Never.
When I came to accuse one of them of the unthinkable, I looked across the cloister and stopped dead in my tracks. The sword was gone. I ran across the grass to where it had stood. It had been right here. I had seen it. I had nearly touched it. The sword is gone! Hello? Hello? I called out, but everyone had dispersed already. I looked down at the grass, and then, with a jolt, looked up to where I had seen the mysterious figure earlier. There wasn't there. I looked at the slight divot in the grass where the blade had been stuck into the earth for a little while. The superior! She had to be warned. Superior! My superior, The door yanked open suddenly.
Get in! Now! Are you quite mad? I will send for you when I am prepared to talk. If you're seen coming in and out of my office at will...
Oh, I know, I'm sorry, but this is really important.
You're putting both of us at risk.
I apologize, but...
I'm making careful preparations so as not to rouse suspicions.
Someone's taken the sword! The superior furrowed her brow. The sword in the courtyard. It's gone. I saw it this afternoon, and now it's missing.
I know.
You... Huh?
I thought about what you'd said after luncheon about leaving a weapon lying around and decided that you were completely correct. It was more than a little ghoulish. I told our sacrist to take care of it not long after you left.
Eustace?
Yes. She's in charge of all the relics and items of interest here, not just the books.
Well, what if she's the killer? She had a wicked blade now. She has a wicked blade now.
A sword that she could have gone and collected whenever she fancies, were that the case. Hedwig? Leave the strategizing to me. There is nothing whatsoever suspicious about an abbess asking her sacrist to keep an object under her care. It makes absolutely no difference in the grand scheme of things if Eustace is involved or not. She would have access to the blade either way. Now, if the blade turns up missing, or God forbid gets used again, she will be the first person to call on. Please trust that I do think about these matters carefully. I like to play at least a few moves ahead and occasionally spin the chessboard.
Moves ahead? What does that mean?
Chess terminology. Have you played chess before?
No.
I'll have Eustace loan you Chessoli's book on the subject. It's really very interesting.
I was well and bloody tired of hearing about chess, to tell you the truth.
Anyway, you should go. If anyone asks, I was checking up on how your first day went. How did your first day go?
I took a deep breath and raised my finger into the air, ready to let it all out again like I had in my previous meeting with the superior. However, I thought better of it in the end. Fine. All things considered, fine.
Good. Good.
Angela doesn't trust you.
Now there's the shock of the century. Anything else?
No.
Very well then. I shall send for you when I am ready to speak on these matters again. And to take you to visit the accused.
Understood, Abbess.
Have a good night, Hedwig.
I left. I trudged up the stairs back to the dormitories. I pulled my robes a little tighter around myself. The wind was picking up outside. At the top of the stairs, I could see Eustace and Adela walking through the halls, holding torches and lighting the sconces on the walls near the entrance to the dorms, the library, and the Misericorde. I was somewhat surprised. Oh my! But who's going to be awake to snuff all those out later?
We typically only do the ones up here. This hallway gets a bit of traffic at night. The dorms, the libraries, and so on. Do not worry about the fires, though. We put them out before we go to bed.
I nodded absent-mindedly and continued towards the dorms. I had a long day. The energy I had received from the bath had almost been entirely spent. I had no idea what the other nuns were planning to do with their night, but all I could think about was my bed. I sprung the door open to my little room and plopped face first into the straw mattress. My head hit the pillow with a thunk. Oh, really? What now? I flung my pillow aside to reveal a book. It had no title or adornment on the cover. When I opened it, I was greeted by a lovely illuminated title page. Medea.
Oh, that's funny.
Mm-hmm. Transcribed proudly by Catherine II of Limborough Tor Abbey. For the enigmatic and enchanting woman,
in the wall. May she find this more interesting and edifying despite its pagan origin.
With apologies to
something.
And Euphrates and kind. For the enigmatic woman... Oh, okay. Never mind. May she find this most
I figured
interesting...
you wouldn't have been doing this if the dialogue showed up.
I
immediately.
honestly didn't remember. Because
Okay.
I remember that the people I was watching commented something about... like this. For the enigmatic and enchanting woman in the wall. But the thing says, for the enigmatic woman in the wall. It skips over some lines. That's why I was reading it, because I wanted to double check. Yeah, I found it interesting. Despite its pagan origins, with apologies to Hosidius and Euphrates and kind.
Euripides and kind. Yeah, how much do you know about the play Medea?
Not too much. The only Shakespeare I know is Romeo and Juliet.
Medea is not Shakespeare, it's Greek.
Oh, okay, never mind.
So, I can do some theorizing with this.
Oh, okay. Fun.
Yeah.
Oh, are we stopping? Is that the end of the thought?
No, yeah, that's the end of my thought.
Alright. I began to weep first, and then sob. Here it was. The play I had been promised all those weeks ago. I thought she was promised the Iliad. I cradled it in my arms.
Go on. Just thinking.
Maybe she didn't mention the Iliad and she just brought the Iliad up.
Yeah, the Iliad was mentioned in passing.
Okay. She probably just didn't say the name of the thing she was gonna give her. I cradled it in my arms. I dared not turn past the title page yet. There was something that kept me glued to those words. Little words that had been written just for me. Catherine's handwriting was a little scratchier than mine, but it was full of character. I touched the page gently, running my finger across the page to feel the slight indents where the quill had been pressed into the parchment. She hadn't broken her promise to me in the slightest. I thought back to that night she came to my window. How soon after that had she died? How long before Samhain had she planned to give me this? I knew from experience that transcribing anything was no simple task, even if a play was much shorter than the Bible. Oh, what a strange mixture of elated and despair I felt. I had a special gift from Catherine, but I would never be able to share my thoughts on the story with her. I was left with precisely half of an experience, and I would never, ever live the other half of it in all my days. It would have to do. Just knowing that Catherine had made this filled me with joy. As I dried my tears, I wondered, who had brought this here for me? Nobody knew that I had spoken to Catherine, surely, unless she had told someone while preparing this book. Did I have a secret ally? Did someone carrying out Catherine's last wish beyond the grave? Or perhaps Darcy had been right and I was about to meet a friendly spirit. I fantasized for a few moments about reading Medea alongside some sort of transparent, flickering version of Catherine for a moment. But it was too sad to keep up for very long. I didn't even know what Catherine looked like. And, well, ghosts don't exist, of course. I put my pillow back in its place and settled down. I couldn't read the play just yet. Not just yet. The whole thing was just sinking in still. I clutched the book to my chest and drifted off to a much-needed sleep. I awoke with a start some time later. I felt hot and uncomfortable as I rose from my bed. I was too tired and overwhelmed earlier to think of to remove my habit before drifting off. I carefully slotted the copy of Medea under my bedsheet and stepped out into the dormitory hall. Hello? Is everything all right out there? I spoke with a loud whisper, not wanting to wake anyone who may also have been trying to sleep. I got no response, however. I peered out into the second-floor hallway. The sconces were still lit, flickering somewhat in the wind. Up ahead, I could hear a door closing. People were still awake, it seemed. I sighed deeply. Was this the hazing the superior had mentioned this morning? Laura,
Is that you? Margaret? Catherine?
I could hear faint laughter coming from somewhere down the hall. Curious, I crept forward. I could definitely hear laughter and talking and what sounded like a lute being strummed. As I walked down the hall, the sounds got closer. I realized they were coming from the door next to the library. The Misericorde? I frowned. It sounded like there was a raucous party taking place behind the door. I was confused and a little hurt. I vaguely knew about the concept of a Misericorde from some of my reading, but it was a room where the rules of Saint Benedict were lifted, and oblates could partake freely in the red meat and pork and other delightful forbidden to us in the rectory on certain holidays. Only half of the congregation was meant to be allowed at any given time, and yet it sounded like a full-blown banquet was happening behind the store. And today was no holiday. I wasn't really part of the group, was I? I had half a mind to barge in, but I turned around, startled. At the end of the hallway, illuminated by sconces, was a tall figure holding a sword. A black goat stood next to them, held by a rope leash. I wanted to scream, but I felt paralyzed. The figure wore black robes. The figure was cloaked in what looked like a nun's habit, only longer, and without a white wimple or cowl. They stood taller than any woman I had ever seen. Slowly, the monster lifted their sword towards me, pointing with a blade. As it glinted in the fire, I realized that they were wearing a large metal gauntlet. I took a step back, but as soon as I did, the apparition at the end of the hall thrust the blade they held into the air. With a rumbling rush of air, all of the sconces in the hallway blew out. For a moment, everything was pitch black. The figure's sword was suddenly wreathed in flame. I could see once more. This creature and their pet were an even stranger sight, lit only by a flaming sword. It was a red light of fire. Their eyes glinted with an unholy sense of menace. Shadows danced through the hall as the mysterious figure slowly lowered the weapon again, bringing it to rest against the ground. After a moment, they dropped the leash they had been holding in their other hand and raised a finger to their shadowed lips. The goat stood still all the same. Assured in my silence, the apparition lowered their hand on the sword's handle. I didn't dare move or make a sound. I was absolutely in the thrall. Now gripping it with both hands, they lifted the burning sword high into the air. Firelight flickered around the hall in an eerie pattern. And then they beheaded the goat in one swift motion. The fire was snuffed out, and I was plunged into the purest darkness. Unable to bear it anymore, I finally screamed. I heard booming metal boots across against the stone. Fearful that it was the beast bearing down on me, I turned to flee, but I tripped up on my habit. I stumbled to the ground and knocked my head against the stone so hard I could see stars. I groaned in pain and struggled to find my bearing, but I was quite dazed. After a few moments of scrambling, I realized there was a thin strip of light next to me in the darkness, and the sound of the chair scraping was heard. Shadows began to pass over the bright line, and I recognized it was candlelight leaking from underneath the Misericorde door. There was some panicked fiddling with the latch, and then the door finally swung open. A few of the sisters huddled around me. Adela was holding a candle and looked by far the bravest out of the group.
Like, are you quite alright?
What voice did I do for Catherine again?
She was just a bit sassy. She wasn't Valley Girl. She was just kind of sassy-ish. I don't know.
Yeah, because I was immediately going to go into the Flora voice, and then I'm like, that's not right. Whatever is the matter?
There's intruder.
I lifted a hand weakly to point down the hallway where I had seen a ghastly apparition. Adela took a few steps that direction, but I lunged forward to grab her frock.
No, they're armed.
Armed?
Yes, it was a monstrous figure at the end of the hall carrying a sword.
What? What should we do?
Marta and Charity appeared in the Misericorde store.
Excuse my overhearing, but did you say you saw someone with a sword?
Heavens above! I thought we were done with that sort of nonsense.
Adela had tugged her robe out of my grip, and I was cautiously walking down the hall. I dragged myself to my feet and made to follow her, the rest of the sisters who had spilled out of the Misericorde in tow.
Tell me everything that happened, Sister Hedwig.
I heard someone knocking on my door, and when I went out to investigate, no one was there. So I left the dormitories to see if they had all gone down the hall, perhaps, and then I saw someone at the end of the hall, carrying a weapon and with a goat in tow.
Hold on. A goat?
Yes, and then they raised their sword and the torches blew out.
Grumps, I would have been scared out of my wits.
I was. I still am.
What happened next?
I'm
dying to know.
I suppose it must have been a he. The more I think about it, he lit his sword aflame and beheaded the goat, but not before pointing straight at me. A threat was leveled against me directly.
Beheaded a goat, you say?
Yes.
This is a rather strange story, Hedwig.
I understand that, but you must believe me.
We had reached the end of the hallway, which split in two directions. Do you hear anything in the background of my thing?
I assumed it was just part of the music. Like a warbling sound. It's just like ambiance.
Do you hear anything? Oh, okay,
Not
never mind,
now.
it stopped. The mic aux thing was going up when I wasn't talking. Maybe it was
Weird.
hearing the music from my headphones.
I think you're just as delusional as Hedwig.
Well, it was a okay. I had visual. Okay, so did she. To be fair. Oh well. A large door in
I
the surrounding
thought
wall.
that this was just a dream at first, and then clearly it seems to not be.
A large door in the surrounding wall of the abbey was open to our left, wobbling slightly in the wind and creaking softly.
Where did this swordsman kill the goat, Hedwig?
It would have been, well, here. Just about.
I gestured around myself in a circle, but as I looked at the stone floor, I realized there wasn't a speck of blood to be seen.
Are you feeling quite alright, Hedwig?
You must have been seeing things. No shame in it, mind. There's all sorts of odd things I convince myself I seen in the dark. And you're in an unfamiliar place and all.
No, I saw it. It happened right here.
Everyone was looking at me with a mixture of concern and annoyance now.
Can we go? It's bleeding cold here.
Adela's candle blew out. Everyone yelped. The door that had been easing back and forth in the nighttime air had suddenly slammed shut in the wind.
The noise echoed throughout the hall with bone-rattling power. Christ almighty! That just about took my poor heart out. Is everyone alright? I was quite shaken myself, but as soon as I realized that everyone else was chuckling...
I'll admit it. That was a pretty good one, Hedwig.
Good...
Absolutely fiendish. You are a very convincing actress.
I was truly bewildered. In the darkness, I could just barely see Marta clutching her chest and catching her breath, but she flashed me an approving smirk. Catherine was attempting to center herself with deep breaths between exasperated chuckles. Adela's face emerged from the darkness in front of me all of a sudden. She had her hands on her hips and looked at me in mock fury.
We must watch out for her in the future. What's going on out here? We heard screaming.
My eyes were slowly adjusting to the darkness. I could see that there were some more of the sisters had emerged from the dormitories, some wearing night clothes.
Nothing to worry about. Hedwig just scared us all witless with a little prank.
Oh, do tell.
She gave the most convincing howl to draw us out of Misericorde. And then cooked up an ingenious story to lead us down here and keep us occupied until the door slammed shut. It gave us all quite a fright.
No! Oh, that's a good one. What did you use? String?
Not a trace of twine here. She must have known it had banged shut sooner or later in the wind. Lucky guess. Hence the cock and bull storytelling once we got here. You can spin a yarn, Hetty, I'll give you that. Not half.
Wait, really? That's impressive, Hedwig. Hello. What's this all of a sudden?
Are we having a party in the hallway?
The rest of the sisters had caught up. I realized that nearly everyone was here. Catherine, Flora, Adela, Marta, Charity, Margaret, Moira, Darcy, and Eustace were all clamoring around me in the hall, engulfed in an orb of candlelight. Interesting. All
That's
except...
a lot of characters.
Where's Angela?
Probably busy seeing if she can fit an even bigger stick up her backside.
Who cares? Consider it a mercy that she isn't here, honestly. I'm not sure she would find this so funny. I swallowed nervously. The narrative that this had all been some grand prank of mine had taken hold so hard and fast I couldn't possibly push back against it. A happy accident, I suppose, given that it was clear as day that there was no blood at the end of the hallway where I had seen a goat beheaded, and no mysterious figure waiting for us brandishing a sword of chase.
We should probably get you back to bed, lest the Superior finds out you've been organizing practical jokes in the middle of the night.
Yes, she's been a bit touchy about that sort of thing lately.
Yes, although I expect she was more worried about us hazing the newcomer, rather than the newcomer hazing us.
Oh, that reminds me, Hedwig. Did you like my prank?
Your prank? Everyone looked at her as I walked back towards the dormitories in the huddle.
Yes, I knocked on your door and then ran back into my room.
A little titter rose up from all the sisters.
Dear me. Oh, silly.
Eustace didn't want me to do it, but I did it anyway.
I was mostly worried you wouldn't make it back without being caught.
I'm faster than I look.
Or knocking something over.
It was very funny, Darcy. You gave me quite a scare. I forced a smile as best as I could, but inside I was screaming. Were the knock and the horrid apparition two separate events? How was it possible? It was hard to accept. Although, not half the one you gave us. We had arrived in the Misericorde door, still hanging open into the hall.
Order. Shall we continue our game? I had you retreating if memory serves. Actually, I think you might have accidentally knocked over the pieces in confusion when we heard Hedwig scream. No! Ah. Oopsie daisy. I think I've had enough entertainment for the night and shall retire to my dormitory.
Likewise.
At the very least, no one needs to worry about snuffing all the torches out before bed.
Everyone murmured in agreement. The group migrated back towards the dorms. Everyone was yawning by now. A few people said their good nights to each other before retreating back into their rooms. I mimicked the pleasantries as best as I could, but my mind was still completely elsewhere. I wanted to grab anyone by the shoulders and scream at them that it hadn't been a prank, that I had really seen a goat slaughtered in the hall, and that missing evidence was obviously the work of some witchcraft. I had half a mind to stop Darcy going to sleep and ask her about what she had meant to us about the Abbey being haunted, or perhaps more importantly, tell her that her vision had perfectly predicted what had happened. I stood in front of my door, arguing with myself, before finally sighing deeply and stepping inside. My mind was racing, but I couldn't ask anyone else to keep pace with me now. Not only was it quite late now, but I had narrowly, miraculously perhaps, avoided being branded a lunatic thanks to a lucky gust of wind. I flopped onto the mattress. I stared at the ceiling for a few moments, trying to work my breathing back down into a regular pace, trying to unwind the tight strings I could feel around the front of my mind. Rationally, I knew that I should sleep. Even after spending a significant amount of day resting, I was dead tired. But how could I? What if they came back? What if they came here to... I really was tired. I was very, very tired.
Alright, two things to point out. First of all, in the background before this one, it was a window outside that was very clearly daytime, but just darkened a whole bunch because it's nighttime, and this makes me really upset. And the second thing is that I was totally going to point out that I thought she was dreaming because it was the same thing that Darcy described in the vision. I thought it was just her being stressed from the day. But
Interesting.
we'll see what happens.
After what couldn't have been more than an hour, I awoke with a start and a yelp. After a moment, I realized I was sitting straight up in my bed with my fists raised. Sleep may have taken me, however briefly, but I suppose I could at least take some comfort in the discovery that I would have been ready if any attacker had made their way into my room.
That'll help with the flaming sword, definitely.
Whatever good my skinny fists would do against a broadsword, I would, at least. I was dead quiet, save for a light whipping out of the wind and a few crows in the distant woods. My eyes adjusted to the darkness after a few moments. I steadied myself and then crept out of bed, sliding my nightgown over my head. I wasn't going to be able to sleep, not until I could be sure it was safe from whatever horrid creatures had menaced me earlier. I placed an ear to the door, just to check if my little squeak upon waking up had alerted anyone. Silence. The stone walls between us were quite thick then. Carefully, I opened my door. Mercifully, I wasn't excessively creaky. While there was a little moonlight leaking in through the threshold of the landing, it was far too dark to go exploring without a light. I remembered Eustace and the others had been holding candles when they came to check on things earlier, so surely there must be... Aha! I hadn't spent much time in the dormitory's mayroom. Sure enough, there was a pricket holding a slight, droopy candlestick resting on a simple mantel above the fireplace. I held a hand in front of the iron's hearth cover. I couldn't much feel warmth, but I had to try. The cover was quite heavy. I did my utmost to not make a sound as I pulled it out of the way, just enough to peer into the fireplace itself. Sure enough, a little gust of warmth billowed out. The fire had banked with ash, just as I had undone many times in my cell. Carefully, I stretched my hands into the fireplace to brush some of the gray dust off the embers before touching the candlestick to it. Eventually, the wick took. I had a little light all to my own. I nearly dropped the candle in surprise. A noise had come from one of the adjoining bedrooms. Terrified, I scrambled out of the dormitory as fast as I could, just as one of the doors swung open. I held a hand over the candlestick's flame in an attempt to hide the flickering light. I could hear hushed voices carrying out of the room into the hallway. Hello?
Oh, sorry. Darce!
What?
Where did I just put the candle?
Oh, I don't know.
Damn it.
I've got one here. I got one here. Hang on.
Give it here then. Honestly, what are you like?
Very talented
What
and
are you
smart.
like?
Yeah, I don't know what that means.
Fair enough. Not what I was thinking at this particular moment.
What's wrong?
Nothing.
A moment later, I could see orange light emanating through the threshold into the hallway. My breath took shallow and ragged as I tried to stay as quiet as possible, and I was turned around at an awkward angle to hide my own candlelight.
Come on then.
Yeah. Sorry, I thought I heard something.
Maybe it's a ghost. Ooh.
Let's be careful what we joke about.
Who's joking? Eustace had no answer for this and turned away from the landing back into the dormitory. I heard a few footsteps and finally a door closing. As stealthily as I could, I left my hiding place and scurried down the hall. As quietly as I could manage, I moved through the hallway towards the spot where the apparition had emerged. I held for a moment as I passed the Misericorde, straining to hear if anyone was behind the door. If there was, I couldn't hear them. I continued onward, my heart beginning to beat out of my chest. What was I doing? The way I saw things, I was in danger no matter where I was. That thing could either kill me in my sleep or catch me out in the halls. I was woefully unprepared on either scenario, and perhaps more importantly, I had a wicked sense of curiosity about the whole situation. I padded over the spot. I was sure I had seen a figure behead that poor creature. Just as before, no blood. The large door that had given us all a start was still closed, now merely wobbling gently in the lighter wind. Slowly but surely, I walked towards the door, scanning the floor for any signs of blood. There was nothing. I reached the large wooden door itself. Presumably the swordsman would have had to have left through this doorway into the night to disappear after the heinous ritual. Curiosity got the better of me. With some trepidation, I slowly pushed open the door, hoping that its creaking wouldn't echo down the halls too loudly. I wedged it open just enough to slip through myself, but again, the force of the door closing blew out my candle. Still rattled from the sudden sound, I retreated from my doorway. I stood in the near pitch darkness once again, although this time I felt more irritated than terrified. Pale moonlight leaking through the main hallway was all I had left to navigate with. I held a hand against the wall and slowly walked back the way I came. The windows running along the hallway that looked down into the cloister finally came into view. so I at least had some inkling of where I was now. Heading away from the confounded door, I could see the path back to the hall that my cell was located in. I stood for a moment, taking it in. I felt a supernatural pull towards the old hallway. As I stepped closer, however, I could hear a strange whistling sound. I felt a chill run up my spine and decided that I would actually much prefer to be in bed after all. I headed back to the hallway to the dormitory, past the library and Misericorde. Out of the corner of my eye, however, I saw a black shape below the landing. There was someone in the cloister. I held my breath and watched as a figure paced around in the grass. Their head was down, and I realized that they could not see me. They were looking away from the landing, although at what I could not determine. My heart pounding once more, I hid behind a pillar and poked my head around to watch. A figure stood still for a few moments more. A part of me I had never met bade me to stay and observe, too curious to escape just yet. Just who or what? What's this monster? With a dramatic turn, they suddenly left the center of the cloister and disappeared into the shadows around the edge of the lawn. At first, I squinted to try to make out where they were going, until a far more intelligent part of me realized this creature could be heading up the stairs. I crept onwards as quickly and quietly as I could, back to the imaginary safety of my bed. I was far too strange out in the halls at night. I made it back inside my room without a peep. I let down a deep, relieved sigh, as well as feeling terrified. I felt a little embarrassed. My first investigative adventure had ended without so much as a hint of a clue. But I was also terrified. I got into the mattress once more, but I dared not shut my eyes. Instead, I sat facing the door and removed the candle from the pricket I held. The pitiful metal spike would have to serve as my weapon if that ghoul came to my door. They did not appear. I sat there all night, clinging steadfast to my weapon and going over everything in my head. Before I knew it, morning came. I dutifully leapt out of bed and dressed as quickly as I could. As I pinned my cowl together, I mused over the best ways to face the days ahead. I furrowed my brow and concentrated as hard as I could. The mist that had been lingering in my mind since the superior snatched me out of the cell was evidently there to stay. And if I were to make any forward progress in the task at hand, I would simply have to deal with it. First of all, for the health of my own soul, I would strive to attend all services and meals, no matter how terrified I was. However, I may have embarrassed myself the day prior. It wouldn't do to give up on integrating myself with the others. And then more to the point, now that I was no longer an anchoress, this is how I would maintain my worship. I could not compromise on this any further than I had already. Mysterious demonic figures be damned. I would not let evil win. I had broken a sacred oath, but I would slip no further. This fear that I felt, the danger that I faced, so be it, I thought. Secondly, Angela was the only sister who didn't show up last night after I screamed. It was quite possible that she was fast asleep, or simply didn't care. But it was, at very least, something I could follow up on whenever the superior next asked me if I had any leads. There was plenty else swirling around in my head, but I would have to wait.
Hello?
Just checking.
I opened the door to see Eustace had already turned to leave, apparently satisfied knowing I was up and about. Darcy saw me and gave a friendly wave before following her bespectacled friend. A few of the other doors A few of the others were shuffling out of the dormitories and into the hallway behind her. They seemed to not have noticed me at all. In the chapel, I tried to find myself a spot in the pews, and there was neither too close nor too far from the others to be noticeable.
What are you doing out here all by your lonesome?
So much for that. I smiled weakly at her as she sidled in next to me. Service went well. I threw myself into worship, but I had a lingering feeling of shame that I could not shake during prayer. Between breaking my oath and interrupting a service by vomiting all over the place, I was increasingly worried about my standing in the eyes of the Lord. I worried as hard as I prayed. Perhaps harder if I am being entirely truthful. It was with some relief that the liturgy ended when it did. The worries had been winning out for most of the service. Breakfast consisted of a thin, warm oat pottage. It wasn't interesting watching the others eat. For the first time, I felt like I was seeing some of my fellow nuns less than completely put together. Little pieces of conversation floated around the table, but for the most part, it was a quiet affair. There was nothing for it.
Sister Angela?
What is it, Sister Hedwig?
What did you get up to last night?
I slept.
I tried to ignore the snorts and giggles that arose from the others. I turned bright red and returned to my meal. So much for that avenue of investigation.
It's true, I'm sure. She sleeps like a log.
Catherine then leaned over her plate and whispered to me in such a manner that ensured everyone could hear.
Don't worry, Hedwig. You'll get her next time.
When everyone had finished eating, the superior stood to address the table. Everyone shifted in their seats to look more alert, all except for Angela, who had already been sitting with her back perfectly straight throughout the entire meal.
Hedwig, Eustace, if you'd follow me. Angela, clear up, if you would. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Abbess.
Angela made a show of rising to her feet.
Of course, Abbess.
I could feel her staring daggers in my back as Eustace and I followed to the superior outside. She led us inside towards the stairs to the second floor of the main building.
Where are we going?
To the library. Eustace is going to help you get started with your work.
Oh, yes, of course.
I was the chronicler now, after all. I realized as we crested the stairs that I didn't actually know what that meant.
I have my own work to do, just so you know. I'm sure Hedwig will only need your assistance with the very basics.
The library was a very odd room indeed. I had pictured it a regimented hall with organized bookshelves lining the walls, perhaps with a long table in the middle of a shared reading space. In reality, it was certainly a room with bookshelves and a table, but it was as if someone had squashed the idea in my head to fit it into the second floor room. The table was off kilter. The books were scattered across the shelves, seemingly at random. It
isn't much.
It's wonderful.
I could see Eustace raise an eyebrow at the corner of my eye. I suppose she had expected me to balk at the state of the room, but I was thrilled to be in the presence of so much scripture again. Not only that, but there was something about the disorganization that spoke to me. It certainly had the most charm of any of the rooms beyond my cell I'd visited yet.
You would surprise me. Thank you for the vote of confidence. It is rather topsy-turvy in here. I have a system. Have I ever lost anything? I suppose I cannot argue with results. That's right. Anyway, this desk in the corner. This was Catherine. The first, for the record. You'll be sharing this space with Eustace often, I imagine.
Second, it's Catherine with the C.
Ah,
I
that's what I get for trying to be smart.
see. I was led to the little desk in the corner closest to the hallway door. I hadn't noticed it when we walked in. The whole thing was obscured by a pile of books and folded up documents. It was almost like I had my own little room, with walls I could peer over.
These large books are what you'll be writing in.
And I will be writing...
The events of each day previous, as well as details of any important correspondence.
Oh, right. Of course. Chronicling. I tapped my forehead in an attempt to make a knowing gesture.
Eustace will sort through any mail we receive and put anything important on your desk to be noted. Then you can pass the documents to her for filing. I have a system. Well, if you have any more questions, I'm sure Eustace will be happy to assist you. I must go and make my rounds with the other sisters before attending to my own work.
Eustace and I gave bowing nods to the abbess as she left the room. As soon as the doors closed, Eustace shuffled over to her own desk in an opposite side of the room to mine, with its knowing piles of bric-a-brac threatening to topple over at any minute. I drummed my fingers on the desk for a moment before reaching for one of the massive empty books the superior had indicated. I opened it up and marveled at the blank pages. For the first time in a while, I felt like I was back where I belonged. That is, until I picked up a quill. I soon realized that without scripture to transcribe, I was at total loss confronted with white paper. What should I write about, do you think?
That's your job, not mine.
Well, yes, it's all a bit new to me, now that I think about it.
I would have thought you'd given it quite a bit of thought before deciding to leave your cell.
Well, I wanted to say that I hadn't decided that at all, but I couldn't. Be that as it may, it is a little different, actually being here. What are you working on?
Cataloging.
What's that?
It's something that's very difficult to do if someone is talking to you.
Oh, I'm sorry. We sat in silence for a minute. I stared at the blank pages in front of me again for a moment, feeling a little stung.
Come on, I'll show you.
I hadn't noticed Eustace walking over to my side of the room. She was looking over my wall of books with a no-nonsense expression on her face. I stood up, not wanting to irritate her any further.
The library here houses a lot of scripture, obviously. But it also carries many other books and documents. For example, recipes. Or songbooks. Over here, we have a little chess section.
A whole section for chess?
Yes. I didn't intend for it. Things just sort of ended up that way.
How's that?
Well, I have a small budget for procuring requests. And some people here got really into chess.
I see.
Let's see. Some gardening books. Darcy reads those, obviously. Some history books. Tarot.
What on earth is tarot?
You know, fortune telling.
Fortune telling? Who on earth would meddle with that kind of thing here?
You'd be surprised.
I grimaced. The more I discovered about this abbey, the more it felt like I was occupied by a horde of Cerebites. Eustace ran her fingers over the spines of some of the books, clearly looking for something.
Ah, here's some classical stuff. Greek plays and so on, and histories. That was all Catherine's department, make no mistake. Actually...
She gestured idly around us with an arm.
most of this place was. She read everything in here at least once, I'd imagine.
Wow, that's impressive.
Well, I've read all of it twice or more. But yes, it is fairly impressive.
Grow up. Come on.
What's in there? I pointed to a door off to the side of one room, nestled between messy shelves.
Ah. That's the other half of my job.
She produced a ring of keys and inserted one into the door, fiddling with it for a moment before unlocking it with a loud clunk. Inside was another storage room of sorts. Only instead of books, it was filled with boxes, chests, and what could only be described as a horde of miscellanea.
This is where we keep some of the Abbey's more notable possessions. We've got some relics.
Do you have relics here?
Steady on, nothing particularly interesting. I'm not actually sure how many of them are real.
Oh.
It's a bit of a racket, Alex. You wouldn't believe how many people claim they have the holy prepuce in a vault somewhere.
The holy...
It's best you don't ask. The point is, if you took every piece of the true cross on display around the world and put them together, it'd be taller than the Tower of London.
You know what that is, right?
I mean, the true cross, I would assume, would be the cross that Jesus was crucified
No,
on.
the holy pubis things.
Well, if that's not referring to the exact same thing that the next thing is, I would assume it's some body part.
Yeah, I believe it's Jesus' pubic hair or something.
Horrifying.
It's really weird.
I don't even know what a part of Jesus' body would be as a relic. That's like a 0th class relic. That's like insane. That's like the Shroud of Turin, but even more valuable.
And that's just the Chrisley relics. With saints, it's even more ridiculous. It's my job to confirm the provenance of the relics we hold here, and I'm not holding my breath for any of them.
Well, what else do you keep in here?
There's this fellow, for starters.
She tapped the breastplate of a suit of armor on display in the corner of the little room. My heart leapt into my throat. The glint of metal was all too familiar. What is that?
Ah. I suppose you wouldn't know what it is, would you?
Oh, no, I know a suit of armor when I see one. I was curious if this one holds any particular significance.
We've been holding it for safekeeping for the Receiver General of some well-to-do estate.
What's a receiver general?
A well-paid bookkeeper.
Oh. I hazarded another question that I hoped would sound casual. And you're the only one with the key to this room? What a responsibility.
A superior also has a key. She's got the keys for most things, I should think.
That makes sense. In case one goes missing?
Steady on. Maybe I have one in case hers goes missing.
I glanced around the pile of assorted bits and pieces scattered around the room. Oh, of course.
Anyway. That just about wraps up the tour, I think.
Oh, are you keeping the sword in here by any chance? I noticed it was gone from the courtyard. It was there yesterday morning and then gone after evening service. Eustace let out a ragged sigh and pinched the bridge of her nose. When she spoke, she had the unmistakable air of someone choosing her words very diplomatically.
Yes, Hedwig. I am keeping Catherine's sword here. The Superior asked me to move it.
I'm sorry.
Let's go. We've both got work to do.
She ushered me out of the little room back into the library. I skulked in my new desk, well aware I'd overstepped some boundary. Eustace sat on her own desk and began sifting through pieces of parchment. Occasionally, she would scribble something in a ledger. From the sound of it, she was taking some feelings out on the paper. I tapped my own quill against the empty book in front of me. I hadn't the foggiest idea what to write, but I needed to do something. I suppose the date was a good place to start. As any. Excuse me, but what is the date today?
It's the 11th of November.
Thank you. Oh, fiddle. I wrote today's date, but I'm writing about yesterday.
So cross it out.
Right. Okay. The 10th of November. On the 10th of November... Well, a lot happened, didn't it? I felt a flash of inspiration when I thought of all the things I could write about my life. What the Superior had forced me to do, how awkward I had been thrust into a double life. But, of course, I could not do that. I had to focus on the basics, which was harder than it sounded. How did Catherine like to write things?
I do have my own work to do, Hedwig.
I know. I'm not sure how to best to write things down. Eustace kept scribbling something in her ledger, not answering. Could I take a look at her old chronicles, perhaps?
No, you can't.
Why?
Because I don't have them anymore.
Where are they?
Why are you so intent on pestering me about Catherine?
I started sniffling. I couldn't help it. I bit my lip and tried to control myself. But it was too late. Eustace kept writing in her ledger. It was so quiet I could hear a tear hitting the parchment on my desk in front of me. I wasn't trying to be a pest.
Don't be so modest. You're quite good at it.
I lurched out of my chair. The precarious pile of books of the desk wobbled, and I could hear glass shattering as I flounced away, sobbing uncontrollably. I fumbled my way deeper into the library. I didn't know where I was going. I just wanted to get away.
Hedwig. Hedwig. Come back.
I could hear her calling after me, but I didn't listen. I ran into the rows of shelves, not paying any attention to where I was going. Even if I had been, it would have been hard to see. I was bawling by that point, with my eyes scrunched up and full of tears. I stumbled around blindly. A few books fell off their shelves, and I brushed past. I found a corner in one of the aisles and fell into a crouch, curling into a little ball and burying my head between my knobbly knees. It was all coming out. The embarrassment, the shame, the anger, and the fear. I'm not even sure if it was Eustace's snippy comment that really did me in. Eustace was far less intimidating than a disappearing swordsman, but nevertheless, here I was. It really was quite dark back here. I couldn't tell how far I had gotten into the bookshelves. The library had no windows. All light emanated from a simple chandelier above the desks and tables. I tried to dry my face with the toilet robe. Holy cow! I tried to dry my face with my robe. I didn't do much considering it was still crying. I felt quite pathetic. For a little while, I bumped around in the dark, hoping to just stay out of Eustace's earshot. It wasn't long until I staggered into one of the shelves, those sending books cascading onto my head like hail. I yelped in surprise.
Hedwig?
I looked up to see Eustace standing above me. She looked quite worried.
I'm really sorry, Hedwig. Will you come back to your desk?
Eustace crouched down next to me and took my hands in hers. She squeezed them gently.
I shouldn't have been so rude to you just then. It's not your fault.
I just...
It's okay. I understand. Let's go and talk about it at our desks, yeah?
No, you don't understand. No one does. No one can.
You're inquisitive because you've never been outside your cell before. It's really not your fault. I'm having a hard time with losing Catherine. I don't know how to handle questions about her.
It's not just that.
What else is there?
I looked up at Eustace's face. It was hard in the dark, but I could make out a weary attempt at a reassuring smile flickering on her lips. Nothing that due to say now, I suppose. I'm all over the place, just in total. Eustace's smile grew, but she looked altogether sadder. She reached out to adjust my messy cowl, then stood up, guiding me back to the standing position with her hand.
Come on. Up you go. Let's get back, yeah?
I nodded, still sniffling.
I really am sorry. I was being quite cruel.
It's all right. Don't keep apologizing. You sound like me. I laughed feebly at my own joke. I just wanted to show that there wasn't any hard feelings, even if it was far too early to really know that. Eustace patted me on my shoulder and sat me down in my chair, then adjusted some of my wobbly books back into the slightly less precarious position.
That sword killed her, you know? That's why I was a bit tetchy.
Yes, the superior told me that much. I was just curious because why was the sword left out there? In the cloister, I mean. It seems so dangerous to leave that sort of thing around, especially when it had just been used to...
I can see why you'd find it strange, but I think there's a good object lesson for you here. You're not wrong that it is a little odd to leave a sword lying around. But that's because you're an outsider. Listen.
Eustace's voice had returned to its usual monotone register once we'd gotten back to our desks, and she reached out sharply to tilt my chin up without a shred of tenderness she'd used amidst the bookshelves.
Inside and outside aren't value judgments. We're all outsiders to someone. I dare say we both feel out of place in Persia.
See, you're saying I don't know the customs.
Something like that. It might be something even harder to define than customs. History, perhaps?
I didn't expect to feel this alone. We're all Catholic, after all.
I think one of the first things you'll pick up on is how little that matters.
I think I'm already there. Halfway, at least.
I'm sure you had a very specific idea of what life was like for us when you were in your cell that is being challenged by reality.
Yes. Yes, that's a good way to put it.
Yet, you're completely correct. Everyone here is Catholic. We are all oblates.
And yet, after only one full day, I've heard cursing and filthy jokes and downright meanness from the mouths of my sisters. I flushed a little. not to drag out our fight. I do accept your apology.
That's alright. You're not wrong. But that also doesn't make anyone here less Catholic.
Well, it certainly seems like not many people are holding to the letter.
That doesn't matter.
Doesn't it?
No, I don't think it does. The church encompasses the world so wholly, it's very hard to not be a part of it to some degree.
I'm not sure I understand.
Do you like money?
Truth told, I never held any money.
Bad example then, perhaps?
No. Try to explain.
You at least understand the concept of money, right?
Of course.
Do you think money is fair?
I think money certainly creates an opportunity for unfairness. So in that sense, I think I would say it's quite a bad thing.
Well, okay. That's further than I was expecting you to go, actually.
Well, that certainly appears a lot in the Bible. In fact, Eustace held up her hands and chuckled softly.
No need to quote Ecclesiastes to me. I understand how you got there.
I was actually going to quote Matthew.
1924?
No, 624.
Actually, that's a great way to illustrate my point.
Nemo potestividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividividi
Your
Mammon.
Latin is terrible, considering how long you've been down there. Look, I'm not going to hold it against you for skipping the Latin, but I am going to make fun of you for it. Mammon is riches.
Yes, I suppose. The demon of riches.
You think Mammon is a being? You don't think it's a metaphor?
What's the difference?
Good answer, actually. Anyway, we both agree then that you cannot worship money and God,
Of course.
but we are nuns. We tend to the poor, theoretically at least. Would it be wrong for the poor to covet money?
Covet, I think, is a strong word.
But they are poor. Poor exists because rich exists because poor exists. They're opposite ends of a spectrum that governs their day-to-day lives. How could a poor person not covet money? Food, clothes, shelter? Things provided by lords who have a lot of money, which is provided to them by kings who have even more money.
So you're saying that everyone worships riches? Nobody is truly Catholic?
No, I'm saying that money is as essential as air to the people who want to live in the world. And when money is scarce, the church provides for them. We provide for them by extension. You know money is evil. You understand the inequality money inherently causes, and the way in which the Bible describes this. That if you were to leave tomorrow, if you struck out on your own to live a life in London or what have you, how would you without money? Who would ever provide for you but the church?
I'm afraid I don't quite understand.
The church is air. If nobody here was Catholic, none of them could breathe.
I didn't really know what to make of this. Eustace had certainly practiced this expression with her worldview, but I didn't fully understand what she was talking about, partially because I was still slightly dazed and over-emotional, but more because it sounded very convenient. This was the very dim view of the church and faith.
Does that make sense?
I understand what you're trying to say, at least.
Well, I'm glad I did it some justice, at least. Catherine's version was a lot clearer.
That was something Catherine said.
Paraphrased, but more or less. Catherine could talk about 3 times longer than I could on the subject. Most subjects, to tell you the truth. I tend to ramble.
I will have to think about all this. That is the most interesting opinion for an Abbey chroniclers to hold. Eustace had turned to walk back to her own desk.
Like I've already told you, Catherine was a very interesting person.
I should have liked to have met her. She sat back down at her desk and began working on her ledger again. The same old Eustace had fully returned. It's a shame her chronicles are gone, then. I could learn a lot from them, it sounds like. I picked up my quill and began writing. This conversation had certainly been illuminating, inspiring even, although not in the sense that I wanted to write like Catherine. To tell you the truth, I couldn't believe Eustace was relaying whatever Catherine's opinion had been fairly. It certainly did nothing to shake the idea that I was in the midst of a group of Cerebates rather than Benedictines. So I felt that, for now, I should chronicle things in as uplifting and holy manner as I could. I would log daily activities, liturgies, mealtimes, and so on, and then I would highlight the goodly deeds I witnessed throughout the day. Godly deeds. I reasoned that this was much healthier than listening into decidedly ungodly things I noticed. I would search for positives, as it were. Are there any letters I need to transcribe here today?
Not today, no.
Does much mail come through here?
Loads.
Who for? Eustace pierced at me over her glasses witheringly.
Most everyone, I should think. There isn't much else to do here.
Who writes the most?
You're being nosy.
I'm just curious. You never know who has a gift for writing.
It's Catherine, if I had to guess.
With a K? Yeah.
Yes, Catherine won. She's very popular.
Really
Also
now?
snarky.
How interesting.
I suppose there's no accounting for taste.
A thought crossed my mind. Are you sure there's nothing I could help you with? Are there any letters that Catherine II was supposed to sort? I could take a look if there were.
There are not.
Really?
I've already taken care of any unopened mail in Catherine's possession.
I see. In that case, I think I might be finished. Eustace rose from her chair and walked over to mine. She leaned over my shoulder. Holding her spectacles against the bridge of her nose, she read out loud.
10th November of the year of our Lord, 1482. The hours were observed in morning and evening liturgies. Luncheon was held in the rectory, as was supper. We actually had breakfast as well, but I suppose you weren't there for that.
Breakfast for liturgy?
Sometime. Vacant position of dearly beloved chronicler filled. Rest in peace. That's nice. by myself. A kindness was visited upon me by Sister Moira. What was that?
Well, she prayed with me in the bathhouse when I was feeling lost.
Well, if it mattered to you. Is that all you're writing?
For now, I think. I will probably go a little longer as I find my footing.
Fair enough. Catherine would fill a whole page. That much I can tell you.
A full page for each day?
Yes, sometimes more. You don't have to do it that way, of course, but you were asking what her writing was like.
No, that's very helpful. Well, what now?
I have work to do still. You can do as you please.
I think I might walk around and check on some of the others. Maybe I can fill up pages hearing about what others are accomplishing.
Not a bad idea.
I stood up to leave. Before I could step away, however, Eustace gripped me by the shoulders. She looked into my eyes with a gaze even more serious than the one she'd used in the garden.
I need you to promise me something, Hedwig.
Yes?
Never go wandering around back there on your own. Can you do that for me?
Back...
Into the bookshelves. Not without me.
I don't understand. She squeezed my shoulders even tighter.
You can borrow anything you want from the library, of course, but I can't have you going back there without my assistance. Or, better yet, just ask me to get what you need for you. My organization system is precarious. Does that make sense?
Not really.
Some books here are very, very important and very, very valuable. I'm sworn to protect them, and my organization system is, well, precarious. As you have seen. It'd be a weight off of my mind if I didn't have to worry about anyone else rummaging around back there.
Of course. I shan't touch anything.
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah, in the Let's Play I watched, the person was Hedwig and Eustace, so that entire scene was just one person talking, and I was made sure not to do that, because that was a pretty long scene.
I appreciate it. That was similar to some of the latter half of Vivid Stasis. I did not intend to
that's
commandeer
okay.
so many scenes. No, obviously. But obviously, I mean, we've talked about this off stream, just there's different ways to do these things.
Yeah.
I picked out characters because I thought it was cool for foreshadowing and twists and stuff. But especially because you don't know as much about foreshadowing and twists and stuff because you only have a third of the game.
Yeah.
Definitely nice to have a well-balanced cast.
Let me assure you, as the door closed behind me, I felt a flare of embarrassment. I was just treated like a total fool, I thought. I had half a mind to turn back around and tell Eustace to stuff her sentimental stories about Catherine and show me the sword under lock and key. I didn't, of course. And thank goodness for that, honestly. No, I won't explain what I meant just yet. Let me tell you something about the chronicler position. It might have taken a fair bit, but it did teach me a thing or two about spinning a good story. Anyway.
Also, the jail cell that we think she's in is totally a mental asylum. She's crazy. I figured it out. There is no evil person but the sword and a goat.
Interesting. That's a fun theory.
Uh-huh.
The cool air of the hallway hit my face hard after being in a stuffy library for so long. I could feel the damp patches around my eyes and cheeks where my tears had been drying. I wiped my face with my sleeves to try to erase any lingering evidence.
Oh, fancy running into you here.
Moira was standing down the hall, carrying a tray adorned with a small pitcher and some sliced rye.
I was just on the way to bring you and Eustace some luncheon.
Nunch. In.
Oh, of course. You wouldn't have had that before. It was just a snack between meals.
Is that allowed?
Loud? Of course. Why wouldn't it be?
I looked side to side nervously, for what I'm honestly not really sure. A disapproving superior? Or worse, Angela? Moira chuckled again and let the tray down at the stone railing overlooking the cloister, and then gestured for me to join her. A little pitcher was full of wine, and there were pieces of crumbly cheese mixed in with the slices of bread.
You can dip the bread in the wine if you'd like.
Dip the. Alright.
I picked up a piece of bread and dunked it into the pitcher. The wine turned it quite an odd color that reminded me of a bit of bile in the flagstone, but I resisted lingering on it too long and popped it into my mouth.
That's quite nice, actually.
It's called Stops. Everyone here loves it, more or less.
And the cheese.
Cheese. Or one of the ones Darcy takes care of.
I tried a piece.
It was also delicious. This might be a silly question. All this food, is it different from what I was served? I took all my meals in my cell, but I don't remember of it tasting quite this, well, good.
Well, we do a lot of cooking with ingredients from the stores in the pantry, and we have to make things last. Maybe you just got unlucky most of the time. Things don't always taste this fresh. Or maybe... Well... Oh, nothing. I was just thinking that maybe it tastes so much better because you're not in your cell anymore.
I don't understand.
Moira took a piece of cheese and chewed it thoughtfully.
A new lease on life and all that. Nothing tastes better than freedom.
My first instinct was to chide Moira at this comment, but I resisted. Instead, I chose to act the part and say something I imagined someone who belonged in this group of women might say.
I would imagine Catherine with the K disagrees that we're free. Up here.
And I suppose by that logic...
Eating outside the monastery would taste even better.
I was actually going to say that a king's food must taste impossibly good.
I was on my way to that conclusion as well, although I think we might have been approaching it from different angles.
But I like the way you think. We should plan a picnic sometime. You and me. We should propose it to the superior.
That's a lovely idea.
Moira clasped my hands in hers and beamed.
Oh, what fun it is! Or what fun it always is to have someone new here.
She let me go and lifted the tray again.
I must be getting the rest of this to Eustace. Where are you off to next, Busy Bee?
I am not sure, actually. I felt like I should sort of make the round, so to speak. Get to know what everyone does around here.
Grand! Darcy and Charity are busy in the kitchens right now, I think. I'm sure they wouldn't mind you poking your head in. I'm sure someone's in the cellars right now if you want to learn about the wine. Oh, so many options! Go forth and explore, I say.
Explore I shall.
I smiled and bowed my head, and then excused myself to head downstairs. I selfishly opted against bothering the cooks while they were busy with something I'd be eating later, and instead headed towards the stairs. I made my way down to the cloister, and through the downstairs hall, I decided that I might poke my head into the undercroft.
Well, look who it is.
Hello, Hedwig.
Hello.
Done with chronicling already?
Yes, actually, well, there wasn't much to write about yesterday, really. Wasn't there?
Did you make sure to immortalize your grand prank?
No.
Really now? I'm surprised. I would have thought that would be the whole point.
Yes, how else will anyone know what happened?
Well, I mostly wrote about the important things like services, the meals, and so on.
Those are the important things?
Give yourself a little credit, Hedwig.
I'll add it tomorrow, perhaps.
You should. Otherwise, we'll all forget about it eventually.
Or pretend we forgot about it.
That's right. In war, one must keep score. Or so Adela keeps telling me.
War?
Relax. We are definitely not planning a counterattack on your door prank.
Yes, we've just been discussing faith and whatnot. Wink.
And the Nicene Creed and its many subtleties.
Oh, how interesting! Which ones? Which subtleties? Filliqui. Oh, that's... I suppose that wouldn't count as a subtlety. That would be my contribution.
Why not? Ow!
I couldn't agree more, Hedwig.
I have a habit of understating things. For effect, you understand.
Naturally.
The pair smiled at me, and I could sense they were politely ushering me onward so they could continue whatever conversation they'd actually been having. I decided to press a little further, however.
What have you two been up to today? I decided to actually see what other work around here is like since I finished so early.
Ah, well, there isn't actually much almoning to do up on this hill, so I've been helping out with the cellars.
Oh, what have you been doing?
Catherine and Margaret exchanged a glance. This, more or less.
Not to sound like our dear friend Eustace, but that's a euphemism.
Well, not entirely. If something needs lifting, they'll shout.
They being Marta or Florida? Marta or Flora?
Typically, yes.
But more often than not around here, helping in the cellars really just means, well, nothing. Standing around, gossiping, wandering around the cloister for a bit.
And the superior doesn't mind this?
Now, steady on. We wouldn't be telling you this if we thought you'd blabber on to her about it.
I won't. I was just worried you might get in trouble.
It's never really much of an issue. Soup can't be everywhere.
And let's keep it that way.
Of course.
Lovely! I knew you could be trusted.
I've always said I had a good feeling about her. Haven't I, Catherine?
That's right. She has.
I couldn't help but be filled with a gush of pride at this remark, but did my utmost to tamp it down.
Well then, I'll just leave you to your important work. Shall I?
Until next time.
See you at luncheon, Hedwig. I was parted with a gracious smile and walked towards the corridor of barrels. I had found Adela and Flora in the day before. Marta was standing next to an open cask. She was holding a wooden ladle, looking thoughtful.
Ah, Hedwig. Finished upstairs already?
Yes, I am. I felt like it'd be nice to get to know everyone's jobs a little better.
Smart girl. Flora could learn a thing or two from you.
I heard that.
Flora's voice echoed from deep within the rows of barrels.
Good. I have her check inventory sometimes, especially if she's been acting up.
I see.
The barrel opened in front of Marta smelled absolutely putrid. Nonetheless, she dipped her ladle into the dark liquid and raised it to her lips, sipping gently and furrowing her brow thoughtfully. Is it supposed to smell like that?
Truth be told, I haven't a clue. This is slightly different from the wine I'm used to.
I must confess, I did not know there were different kinds.
It's sherry. Adela pestered me to try making it the moment she arrived at the Abbey.
Goodness, she must be very particular.
She has expensive taste, yes. We had to get fancy new distiller set up in the workshop just to try making it.
The Abbey could afford that? I was just talking to Eustace about her acquisition budget.
I try not to think about money most of the time, to tell the truth, but I've heard the Superior had access to more than you would expect.
I suppose I wouldn't really know what to expect. Isn't that wrong, though?
If it were true, I would certainly mean that Abbey is stuck in a uniquely unfortunate position of having a lot of charity to give up and no one to give to. I'd urge you to quell this Cistercian tendencies. I'm not sure the church could withstand another order fracturing.
Marta took another whiff of an unfinished wine with her spoon. She wrinkled her nose and emptied the spoon back into the barrel.
Anyhow, this is a little use in speculating the speculations. We have a distiller, and all I need to worry about is making sure the sherry isn't a disaster. Would you be a dear and find Adela? I need her to tell me if I'm on the right track with this.
Of course. Where would she be this time of day?
She does this and that, so I haven't a clue to tell you the truth. I'm just too old to be given the runaround.
I understand. I'll find her. I bowed my head and left the way I came. It turned out I didn't have to go very far. After jogging back to the downstairs in the cloister, I decided to check the gardens, where I found Adela and Darcy tending to rows of vegetables.
Adela! Hello.
My name's Hedwig.
Hedwig, hello.
Hiya.
Sorry, I saw the name Adela. And I was...
Hello. Marta actually came to ask to find you, Adela.
Is she meddling with the sherry again? She is going to ruin it, I swear.
Oh, be careful. Sorry,
Sorry, I couldn't hear you. You were mumbling a bit. But sherry is very important. And delicate. For sherry I will swear. For sherry I will sweary.
Fair enough.
Goodbye, my friends. I will speak to you again once I have walloped some sense into Sister Marta. With words, Hedwig. Do not worry.
The old word, Wallop.
That is correct. I would never hit anyone. Although, over sherry.
No, that's not funny.
It is a little funny.
Thank you, Darcy.
Because really, I would not.
And that's what makes it funny when to say you would. I get it.
I suppose we have very different senses of humor. Adela gave me a little approving nod to Darcy and then turned to leave.
Would you mind helping me finish what she was helping me with?
Of course. What can I do?
Pick the rest of the carrots with me and put them in the box.
She pointed at a wooden crate half filled with plump reddish vegetables. All right then. Do I just...
You gotta push them down and yank them out. Like this.
Darcy flopped her knees and gripped a clump of green stems that were poking out of the soil. She pointed up a little purple mound poking out of the air.
Watch this.
She pressed the carrot to the earth and pulled it out of the ground with remarkable ease and then tossed it several yards into the crate.
It's easy. You try.
I knelt down gingerly into the soil and a little apprehensive about getting my frock dirty. I rummaged around the nearest patch of greens and traced my finger down a stem until I uncovered the top of a carrot. I pressed. Nothing happened.
Press harder.
I gave it my all. The resistance finally broke after a few difficult seconds, and I nearly fell face first into the carrot patch.
Oh! There you go. Now pull it out.
I regained my composure and moved a carrot from the earth quite easily. Why does that work?
You're breaking off some of the little roots holding it in place.
That's miraculous. I never would have guessed.
It just works. Plants are wonderful. Thank God for plants.
She continued harvesting carrots, and I followed suit.
There's certainly a lot here. As much food as we can get before winter starts, and carrots are good in everything.
I hadn't thought about that. What else do you grow for winter?
Peas, sprouts, cress, parsnips.
Goodness,
Leeks, celery, beans, beets.
and you take care of it all?
With help, but yes, I do.
Remarkable. They're very admirable.
I like to help. And when people help me help, well, it's a good feeling indeed.
I picked up the pace a little, slightly more confident about my carrot pulling abilities all of a sudden. And you tend to the animals as well?
Yes.
You certainly got a lot of responsibilities.
There are actually not that many animals.
I think even a few ducks might be just too much for me to handle.
The ducks are friendly, so that helps. Other than that, we just have sheep, and that's shared responsibility.
Really? With who?
A man from the village spends some time up here in a little house that helps with the sheep.
I didn't know there were others living in the hill with us. Huh. Interesting. Only ducks and sheep, eh? Moira said that Darcy had some goats. Interesting.
That is interesting.
Wonder what the discrepancy is about. Moira.
All the goats were just killed in the hall last night.
There was only one. I didn't know there were others living up on the hill with us.
Oh, this hill is just
punched the goat.
On this hill, just him, and he is a bit of walk from us.
It was strange having a more in-depth conversation with Darcy. Her odd manner of speaking, I must confess, had belied the thoughtfulness from which she listened to and responded. Her words came thick and slow, like a treacle, and sometimes it felt like any emotions they carried were delayed. Nonetheless, it was clear that she was lucid and intelligent, just as much as, if not more so, than anyone else I had spent time with so far at this convent. So I picked up my next question carefully. It is a rare privilege to see you in the process of having a vision yesterday.
Oh, right, yes. Was it now?
Yes, that's a beautiful and powerful thing.
I wish I could remember them.
Eustace writes them down for you, doesn't she?
Yes, but that's not the same. I do appreciate her doing that, but I wish I could keep track of them myself.
You don't remember them at all afterward?
Not at all.
You don't, the one you had yesterday was rather prophetic.
Oh, really?
Yes. I mean, fire, goat. That was perfectly accurate.
I predicted your prank.
Darcy, would you believe me if I told you that that wasn't a practical joke I came up with? That I really saw a monster of some sort.
Probably not.
A monster of some sort and a goat?
Probably not, but go on.
I promise you I did.
Well, you know me, and I do think this place is haunted, but I'm not really sure I've seen anything like that. It's a little haunted here, but not ghost sacrifice haunted, so that would be strange. I suppose a practical joke is more plausible, but if it wasn't your prank, who could it have been?
Well, that's just the thing. I don't know. An idea came to me in a flash. Do you think I could read Eustace's full journal about yesterday's vision? Perhaps there had been another clue written down there that I had missed. Something that could help me determine what had really happened. At the very least, comfort me with the knowledge that I was not truly being pursued by ghosts or devils.
Don't know. You'd have to ask her.
Really? It's your vision.
It's Eustace's writing.
Fair enough. There was a long pause. That was the end of the matter, evidently. So does the abbey keep any goats?
No goats, just sheep and ducks.
I was just curious, honestly.
I was under the impression that goats were common fixtures at abbeys. The same books had been lent to me to assume the abbey I lived in would follow some sort of structural plan, had also painted a rather specific picture of their inhabitants. Not having any goats to tend to was at least not as egregious as condensing the hours, but it did complicate my understanding of what I had seen the night prior. Then again, I suppose Darcy would have noticed if a goat had gone missing. Would you like to meet one? Meet a goat? Yes, because I can probably arrange that if you want to see a goat. They are very sweet and funny. Last time I saw a goat, it chewed over my sleeve and took a big hole out of it, and I had to get Moira to sew it back up. And then I had one sleeve with slightly less fabric than the other sleeve, so it looked funny. That is very fun. But no, I was actually curious because if I had seen a goat, where would it have come from? The impish grin crept over Darcy's face as she loaded carriage into the crate. I think I know where this is going. You've been having me on a bit, haven't you? We're working on a new practical joke. No. I see. See, I knew you had to be joking when you said you saw a goat because there are no goats here, so you couldn't have seen one. But if you wanted to really get your hands on one for a new prank...
Mr. Hedwig?
I whipped around to see Angela looming over the vegetable patch, looking as icy as ever. Yes, Sister Angela?
You were meant to be working in the library today. Instead, I've been looking all over for you.
Yes, but I finished my work early.
I'm sure you must have done a superlative job. The superior wishes to speak to you before luncheon.
I could taste the poison in those words, and I had almost enjoyed it. Almost. I'm sure she wants to know how my first day of real work went. I was just helping Darcy with the carrots, and I'll be on my way.
I am to take you to her now.
I stood up, brushing my hands off my robe. I think I know my way to her office. If you'd like to exchange places...
No, I don't think so. I was given a job to do.
Yes, well, I was too.
Oh? You're taking orders from Darcy now?
It wasn't really an order.
It's alright, Hedwig, I can take it from here.
Wonderful. Let us be going then.
I tossed Darcy an apologetic glance as I hope she caught as I followed Angela away from the garden. I walked in silence to the superior's office. Angela's presence usually made me feel meek, but something about helping Darcy had given me a small boost of confidence. I spent the walk imagining several witty and biting things I could say to Angela if she happened to speak. She didn't, of course. Not until she arrived at the superior's door.
Well, have a productive meeting.
She made a show of turning on her heel and marching away briskly. I thought a few more clever things I could have said before clearing my mind the best I could, and knocked on the door. After yesterday's arguments with the superior, I had resolved to be as polite and demure as possible. I could speak with the superior with the respect her station demanded, and I would save any pithiness for an imagined Sister Angela. The door swung open and the superior ushered me inside. We exchanged basic pleasantries before diving into the heart of the matter.
How was your first day of working in the library?
It was most tumultuous than I expected, Your Reverence.
Really now? I wouldn't have expected Eustace to be a particularly difficult person for you to work with.
I suppose I have a lot to live up to. Everyone's expectations make me nervous.
I sympathize. Try not to let it bother you, however. The most important expectations here are mine.
Yes, Your Reverence.
Try not to be nervous. You are performing admirably for me so far.
Of course, Your Reverence.
There's no need to overcorrect for your insolent outburst yesterday. Speak to me as you would anyone else.
Yes, Yes.
I bowed my head a little. Truth be told, I was getting increasingly frustrated with how arbitrary every little application of tradition around here was. I was being admonished for speaking properly now, after I had been so rude. Honestly.
Anyway, we are going to take a little walk.
Right now?
Yes, it's time you met the accused.
Won't it be fairly obvious that we're gone?
Everyone else will be busy finishing their morning work or preparing luncheon. Outside of creeping away to the hospitalum in the dead of night, there's no time like the present for us to leave unannounced.
I see.
The idea did not thrill me. Then again, speaking with James had been my idea in the first place, so I had little room to object.
Does anyone else know?
Of course not.
She opened the door and held it for me. In the best circumstances at this point in time, the Abbey felt strange and alien to me. Knowing that they were attempting to slip out into anyone noticing, however, made a place feel actively hostile. I jumped at every mid-morning shadow and held my breath, passing every blind corner, even though the Superior walked ahead of me. The building seemed a little more disrepaired than further from the cloister we got. The wall protecting the side of the Abbey was downright shabby. Bricks lay in the grass, and moss was bursting out of the mortar.
Is the hospitalum not part of the Abbey?
It was built much further away than is useful, I must say. Are you alright? You're a bit pale.
It had just struck me that I was about to leave the confines of the Abbey, hardly a day after being ripped from my cell. Compared to my organized existence in the small room, the corridors and the cloisters already felt like a whole new world. Stepping beyond those walls felt like a whole new level of transgression.
I'm alright.
If nothing else, it was quite beautiful out here. From here I could see a thick fog encircled and the Tor Abbey was built upon, almost as if they were nestled in the eye of the great storm. Down the steep hill, I could just barely make out the nearest village. The little buildings were situated in the edge of the lake, so large that it disappeared into the mist.
We're so far from the village. It's rather strange.
Truthfully, what isn't strange around here?
True. But even the architecture is not what I would have expected. I had noticed, actually, that the Abbey's buildings don't quite line up with St. Gall's plan, or the Romanesque plan.
Our abbey was built in somewhat curious circumstances, I am told. I would believe it. It was evidently not laid out by a master architect.
Do you have any idea why?
Because it would have cost a great deal more money to build it properly, I suspect.
Money is no object when it comes to houses of worship, surely.
That is, sadly, not how it works. Often it falls to a generous benefactor to fund a new community. The great halls of Kirkstall, for example, were paid for by a lord. Bungay Priory was paid for by a countess. Linbarrow Tor? Well, I'd like to know, to tell you the truth.
You don't know who actually funded this place?
No. I am not the first abbess, and hopefully not the last. The history of our community has not been particularly well recorded. I hope you can improve that, once we are free of this foul mystery.
I turned to look back at the monastery from a distance. Even from far away, I could see that it was fairly dilapidated, oddly situated, and altogether somewhat crooked.
How old is it?
I'm afraid I don't know that either. Monasteries serve many purposes. Wayhouses, centers of learning and study, beacons of spiritual guidance for local communities. Linbarrow is none of these. I would quite like to see us become one day. Another reason why our mission is of the utmost importance. This place is falling apart, Sister Hedwig.
I understand. The superior nodded, and we continued walking to the hospitalum.
I might take a quick restroom break here.
Yeah, that's completely fine. I did not know Darcy's scene and the victim scene were this close together.
Interesting.
The accused scenes.
Yeah, I'm good to keep going for a while, but when do you think the next good stopping point is?
I have no idea.
Fair enough, and I guess we'll both be surprised when it happens.
Yep.
Alright, I'll be right back.
Alright.
The hospitalum was an odd little building. It looked like a piece of the chapel that had been broken off and placed in the middle of the field, with nothing but a beaten path indicating that it was meant to be part of a larger community. I was somewhat relieved that it was not readily visible until we had crested a small hillock during our walk. We did not go in to the front door. Instead, the superior bade me to follow her around the back of the building, to a smaller door. I could see the hole where the wall of the building met the ground as we walked past. This really was a haphazardly constructed place.
So, how you doing, chat? You doing good? Any thoughts so far? Any theories?
I'm back. Did it
Okay.
autoplay or something? Or did you
no.
just skip to...
I was reading the narration. Basically, they came into a building, but the superior wanted us to go to the back of the building.
That makes sense to me.
Yeah. And yeah,
After
that's
all,
it.
you should watch the stairs. They are quite steep.
We did not go to the front door. Instead, the superior bade me to go to the back door. Hospitalum is a little building.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Not too
Nothing to
much.
worry about.
She produced the same key ring that had taunted me when I heard it in my cell, and it was impossible not to gasp as the door swung open and I saw what lay inside. A stone staircase led down to what looked like a cellar, only there were iron bars splitting the room in half. I jumped as a figure scurried out of the dark corner of this horrible room. He looked panicked, slightly younger than I, to be sure. His clothes were rumpled from his hair, and his hair was messy. There was a putrid stench lingering in the room that I did not want to guess the source of. He might have had a boyish charm under better circumstances, but imprisonment was clearly taking its toll. I was stuck in the rush of a pity when our eyes met. He rushed forward, throwing himself against the bars and gripping them with his bloodied fingers. He pressed his face between them to bring us as close together as he possibly could. Oh, thank God!
Step back, boy, if only a little.
I couldn't bend these bars. Believe me, I tried.
Nevertheless,
His eyes darted between the superior's and mine a few times before he relented. He took a step back and breathed deeply. He really was a pathetic sight to behold.
this is Sister Hedwig. She would like to ask you some questions.
Questions? What bloody questions could you possibly ask?
Did you kill Sister Catherine?
No, I didn't kill no one.
He paused for a moment, looking me up and down, and then he turned to the superior.
That's it? You've held me up here for how no long, had me wait in this shithole while you promised to get me help, and you bring me another nun to take some goddamn questions you've answered over and over? Have you no shame?
I am sorry.
This is supposed to be country, but I think it's veering into New Orleans, and I don't know why.
Whatever it is, it really captures the pathetic vibe. So I'd say it's perfect.
If you were, I wouldn't be locked up here.
Hedwig, I will wait outside. Conduct your questioning with some haste so we can be back in time for luncheon.
What do you want?
You're sure you did not kill her? You promise?
What good is my word? You've already decided. You have no evidence. But neither do I.
Well, it would matter to me. The mouth that lies kills the soul, and it is written as it is written.
That they do.
Are you a God-fearing man?
As much as anyone else around here is.
Then would you promise me you did not kill Catherine?
It doesn't matter what I promise. I could promise me.
The stable boy recoiled in shock. I was surprised myself. I had stamped my foot down so hard it had kicked up dust from the filthy cellar floor, and it lingered in the air for a while as the young man and I stared at each other.
I promise. I swear to you. I never killed nobody. Least of all some poor woman.
I believe you.
Fantastic. And where does that leave us?
I have more questions.
Of course you do.
Why were you there that night?
I made a mail and supply delivery sometimes from the village.
At night?
Not usually, no. I had forgotten. I had forgotten something. A letter. I saw it laying in the dirt while I got to the bottom of the hill and came back first thing the next morning to deliver it.
What was in the letter?
How should I know? I'm no murderer and I'm not a thief neither.
Of course. That was a silly question.
From where I'm standing, all your questions are worth just the same.
I want to get you out of here. I want to help you.
You really keep saying that, but if you wanted to help, you could just open the door and set me free. Let me go home.
I don't have a key.
Then you could call the bloody superior down and have her do it.
I can't. She wouldn't.
Then how can you help me? This isn't fair. This isn't right. This isn't convenient. Why do you witches even have dungeons?
He raised an honest point. For extreme situations like this, I suppose.
Will I ever see a judge? Or do you lot still do the ordeals around here?
I don't know.
Fat lot of good your help does to me then.
I want to prove your innocence.
To who?
To everyone.
Your superior says she believes me as well. If you believe me, that's well and good, but clearly something else is keeping me here. Who am I meant to answer for instead of a jury? I'll tell you what I'll tell you what I think. No, I don't think you'll believe me at all, you or her. I think you're keeping me calm before you put me down like a lame horse.
Superior? Mother Superior?
The door swung open after a moment.
Are you finished?
No, I have a question for you, actually.
Very well.
Why can't we just let him go?
I would have thought that was obvious. Justice must be done one way or another, lest we risk open revolt from the other sisters. They want blood, one way or another.
So what happens next if you don't prove my innocence?
The bishop will decide.
The bishop?
Yes, he has been informed of the general situation. When he makes his usual visit at the end of the month to deliver the sacraments, he will deal with it, along with any other business.
So no matter what, somebody is going to be handed over to him.
Yes, and I want it to be the right person.
No.
I will wait outside once more for you two to finish up. Do hurry.
This is hopeless. You're no constable. Please, please help me to do my best. Tell me the whole story of the morning you were caught. Don't overlook any details. Very well. I arrived late with the missing letter. I noticed that there was sister normally handed off wasn't there, and I would normally find her. Where is that? The library. She did a lot of writing, as far as I know. Did you check anywhere else? Well, I didn't want to overstay my welcome, especially at night. I wouldn't dare poke my head into the dorms, but she wasn't in the misery. What is it? Neither. Who did you end up giving the letter to? I don't know everyone's names. I think that I don't even know your name even. It's Hedwig. Sister Hedwig. James Foreman. I wish I could say it was a pleasure. James offered me a grim, humorless smile. I was looking for someone else to give it to for a bit, but I don't know the place very well. And you could have just, I don't know, left it on the table somewhere and gone home? Well, that's just it. I couldn't. A job halfway done is worse than not done at all, my old man always says. That's very astute. Allow me a little dignity, thank you thank you kindly, ma'am. I was looking around for someone to help me, to ask for help, when somebody grabbed me and said they caught me. I know you don't know anyone's names, but who... Can you describe her? Well, she was stern, I suppose. Beaky, if you excuse me saying. Angela. Yes, I think I remember one of the others calling her that. It was quite a blur after all that, if I'm being honest. I was scared out of my wits as soon as she nabbed me. What about you? What about the blood on your tunic? Blood? What blood? Your tunic was bloodied. That was one of the first things I was told. I left my tunic in the cart, and was only there to deliver a letter. Explain? I hadn't worn my tunic since the day prior, I swear to you. I wasn't wearing no tunic when Angela grabbed me by the ear. We stared at each other in silence for a moment. I wanted to believe him, but that required believing that there was a much deeper conspiracy at work than I could even have imagined. We were both so still that I could hear the wood above us creaking and bending. It was almost as if the building itself was breathing. Finally, the silence was broken by the door atop the stairs opening.
Are you satisfied? We should go back soon. We cannot miss luncheon.
Have you seen it? Have you seen my tunic?
What is he talking about?
His tunic. The one covered in blood? He says he wasn't wearing it the morning he was found.
Impossible. I saw the thing myself. It's ghastly.
I swear I wasn't wearing it. It's true, damn you. Somebody's lying.
I have seen it. It is indeed bloodied, and I can have Eustace pull it out of storage to show you. However...
I'm being betrayed! Set up! Anyone could have gone to my cart and taken it. You were only there for a short while, no? Did you pass anyone on your way from the cart to the library? No. No, I didn't.
And it's just your word against a bloody tunic. I must say, it's not very convincing.
You said you believed me.
And I do. But I am not the one who needs convincing, unfortunately.
You are. I hear those keys jingling. Just let me go. You'll never hear from me again. I'll run away. I'll find another job somewhere.
You will do no such thing.
Curse both of you, then. Some help you are. Is there anyone you might know there that think might... Is there anyone you know here who you think might have had it out for you? I just can't imagine anyone doing such a horrible thing. No. No? No.
Well, that will have to do for now. I hope you learned something useful, Hedwig. For all our sakes.
Wait! There is one more thing that may help my cause. Somebody who can vouch for me not wearing my tunic that morning. Who? Sister Catherine. The other one.
I thought you didn't pass anyone on the way in. She was in the library when I went up to find Catherine, the other Catherine. God rest her.
Well, it certainly is not much, but it might be a start.
Thank you, Mr. Foreman. Has word been sent back down to the village about why I'm gone?
Yes.
That's good, I suppose. And have you had any word back?
I have not.
Shame that. He looked utterly defeated, so much so that I could not bear looking at him any longer. A small part of me wanted to wrench the keys from Mother Superior's hand and free the wretch myself. Ma'am, you made me a promise I was telling you the truth, and I did. Will you? Will you promise me to find whoever did this to me? I can't promise that. I can't promise what I don't know is possible. Do you promise you'll try? Please. Yes. I promise I will do my utmost. We bowed to the poor young man and headed back to the precarious staircase in the world outside. I dared not turn around to see his expression as we left. I could not bear it. The Superior and I didn't speak on the walk back to the Abbey. I was torn between feeling curious about the wide world I had stepped into and worrying that someone in the stone building ahead of us was watching. I half expected an arrow to come sailing across the sky and strike me dead in the chest. However, almost as soon as this gory image crossed my mind, the fog between us and the monastery thickened. I found this comforting, as if I was, perhaps, being watched over by God on my righteous quest. How very silly of me. The thought carried me for a little while, though.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is the closest thing we've had to a lead.
It is.
Luncheon is gonna be late today.
I see. What happened?
Well, a cat happened, I think.
After a brisk walk through the grounds, the Superior and I approached the rectory. According to her, we had made perfect time. However, the rectory hall was empty when we arrived. Now Darcy was explaining to an increasingly bewildered Superior that Limbarrow had yet another mystery within its walls.
A cat?
I was roasting the... I need to get out of this weird accent.
I was roasting a duck when I heard some rustling and then some pots fell over behind me.
Oh dear.
It could have been a ghost, but I was wondering if it was a ghost. It could have been a ghost, and I was wondering if it was a ghost at first, but then I heard it meowing, so it was probably a cat.
That is a relief, at least.
Could be both. Anyway, while I was picking up the pots, I think I tried to eat the duck because I heard it yowling, and I ran out.
Could be both. Anyway, while I was picking up the pots, I think it tried to eat the duck because when I heard it yowling, and then it ran out the door. Poor thing. Probably singed its whiskers.
It's a disgusting little creature, and I won't have it bringing the plague in here.
I am not taking any chances. I'm making a new lunch, and that's why it'll be late.
Good. Is someone looking for the vermin?
Eustace.
Godspeed to her. Is everyone else informed of the delay?
She can handle the cat. She can feed a million ducks. Endless ducks. I'm sure she can handle the cat.
Cats have claws, though. Ducks don't have claws. Some ducks have teeth, though.
Nearly everyone was milling around outside the rectory, ready for lunch, and so I had to disappoint them. I think Adela and Marta were still in the cellars.
And I suppose Moira was still on her way to bell duty. Well, it seems like everything is in order. I look forward to the meal.
Good night, chat. She nodded at Darcy, who
Good
didn't
night,
seem to
indeed.
be playing. She didn't seem to be paying her any attention, and then ducked out of the kitchen.
Yes, soup Everything is in order, and that's why someone died.
Oh dear, I'm so sorry.
You're all right, my friend. I always just wish he didn't pretend nothing is hanging over all of us at this moment.
I understand.
Well, what can you do? Some people are just detached from it all.
Do you need help any cooking?
I have it in order, but thank you for the offer. You were already a big help in the carriage this morning.
I gave Darcy a little bow and stepped out of the kitchen.
I heard the bell, but there's no food.
Oh, there was an incident in the kitchen, so things are going to be late today.
No, I know, but the bell just rang, so... Hello, you two. Ready for lunch?
No, actually,
It's going to be late today, apparently. Oh no, and I already rang the... Yeah, I noticed. Whoopsie daisy, I've been so busy today. Me too? Oh, really? What have you been up to? Well, after service this morning, I felt tired, so I took a nap. Oh no, were you up late again last night? What do you mean, again? Come on now, I know you. Don't listen to her, she's crazy.
Moira laughed and pulled Flora into a one-armed hug, which Flora seemed to appreciate very little. Given that we both had seen Flora emerge from the Misericorde last night, it seemed like Moira was entirely correct, although I was determined not to take sides. Have either of you seen a cat? Supposedly that's the villain responsible for the lunch delay.
A cat? Would we even need one? I've never seen a mouse here.
Darcy said one got in the kitchen and was knocking things around. Got too close to the fire, poor little creature.
It's just a cat. You like cats, Hedwig?
But I don't know, really. I imagine they're quite sweet.
Oh, of course. Silly me, always forgetting. You've never seen a cat? I suppose she wouldn't have ever had one in her cell. Oh, right. Well, they're, bit creepy. I think. I wouldn't know. The devil plays with the sinner like the cat does with the mouse, after all. Come to think of it, are there any cats in the Bible?
Only one, actually. Mentioned offhand in the letter Jeremiah as part of Baruch. Baruch?
I believe it's Baruch, but I don't know.
Huh? Goodness, you really are a scholar.
Did you notice?
I don't think so.
Hold on. What about lions? What about them? Never mind. Oh!
I flushed red. I was deeply embarrassing to be bested this way, and especially by Flora. I wasn't even sure she had actually read the Bible.
Well, it just goes to show. All of us have places we could brush up on in our understanding of scripture.
Indeed. I smiled weakly at the pair of them and took my leave. I was feeling quite strained after the morning's stressful events, and I wasn't sure how much more social interaction I could handle before eating. I was angrier than I should have been about Flora's observation about lions. Angry at her or myself, I wasn't quite sure.
Either way, I certainly did not feel up to the task playing Inquisitor with Catherine. I decided to go for a stroll around the paths between the rectory and the garden. I had been surprised by Darcy's shocking outburst, relatively at least, as soon as the superior had been out of earshot, but I was now finding myself agreeing with her. In total, the events of the past 2 days, day and a half really, had been unlike anything I could have possibly imagined while whittling my hours in the cell. Do you find it mad too? I had seen a ghost or a devil in front of my very eyes the night before.
Yeah, I think you're crazy.
Here I was, wandering around the Abbey grounds, overwhelmed by the prospect of talking to any more human beings for a little while. The others had not believed me when I told them about the monstrous separation that had... And it was that doubt, I think, that might have kept me from unraveling completely. After that moment, the most terrifying prospect in front of me was sharing a meal in a room with someone who, potentially, had stolen a man's tunic to cover it in a vicious murder. But then, surely, all of that paled in comparison to what I had seen the night prior. An impossible creature threatening me with a blade before disappearing without a trace. If I had either of these scenarios in my head for too long, the grim tangibility of Sister Catherine's murder, or my possibility that I had seen some kind of devil with my own eyes, I felt faint. No, I felt worse than faint. I felt like St. Vincent on the rack, having to choose exactly which end to kill, which end myself I prefer to have burned, one thought at a time.
Do you know who St. Lawrence is and how he died?
I don't remember, no.
Yeah, he's the patron saint of barbecues, I believe, specifically, or like patron saint of cooks, because he was being burnt alive, and his last words were saying, "Can you turn me over? I think I'm done on this side."
I didn't know that was a saint. Interesting.
Yeah. No, St. Lawrence is awesome.
I remember that story, but I never knew that was a saint. Interesting. Huh. Are you writing any of this down, by the way? Not that I'd mind if you did. She might not approve, though. I hear she holds quite fast to her rules, despite all appearances. Anyway. While wandering, I found myself at the door of the chapel. I felt compelled to enter, but what better place to collect myself? If anything could ease my mind at this point, it would be the moment's prayer. With some difficulty, I swung open the heavy door. I strode through the aisle, taking a moment to gaze upon the high ceiling, to feel at peace for just a moment. Oh, the Margaret scene is that... Oh, I didn't realize the Margaret, Darcy, and James scenes were this close together. Okay. We have to stop meeting like this. Ah! Sorry. It can be
almost
a little...
the stopping point. It seems very action-packed. Or do you still just not know?
We could probably stop when the lunch bell rings, which is pretty soon, I think.
Yeah. Because once again, not in a rush, but
Yeah.
it seems like a lot of things are blending together for you. So,
No, I'm just bad at reading out loud.
that's fair. Don't worry, we both are.
But my boss texted me during the stream, and he asked me to come in at 6:30 tomorrow instead of 8, which I was supposed to. So we may have to end a bit early soon, unfortunately. But
It's
yeah.
so sad.
Sorry, it can be a little shadowy in here. That's quite all right. I'm just learning that I am easily startled since leaving my cell. Nobody could blame you for that. How are you adjusting today? Did you start writing? I did, as a matter of fact. Lovely. Eustace wasn't too hard on you? No. Liar. That sounds good. I'm sure you'll end up locking horns eventually. So be ready. Really? Eustace seems so quiet generally. She is, but she's very easy to rile her up, especially if you disagree with her about something. She and Catherine used to bicker a lot, I take it? Oh, endlessly. Especially about chronicling.
Margaret extended a hand to the pew nearest us. Care to sit? Of course. We sat down together. Margaret gazed at the pulpit briefly before continuing. Eustace is very intelligent, and Catherine was too. And intelligent people sometimes enjoy having to go at each other's for sport. It's how they show affection. What on earth would Catherine write that would irritate Eustace so much? I didn't read much of her chronicling, to tell you the truth. I don't think anyone here does. The job is really about writing something down for people who argue about years later. I suppose we're living here, reading about it wouldn't be very interesting. Catherine had the same thought. She wrote about all kinds of different things. I'm meant to do that as well, I think. The letters? Yes, those were her sticking point. I think you're meant to copy them down word for word to mark time, but Catherine would go quite deep into some of them. There was one instance a couple years ago. Yes? Actually, no, I thought of a better one. Have you ever heard of the Reims Cathedral? No, actually. It's a very big cathedral in France. One of the biggest, in fact. It's quite grand. Anyway, it was damaged in a great fire, and Catherine was meant to write that down. Instead, she demanded to write a letter to the municipality. Municipality, over the smallest detail. There was a note in the letter about how the King of France had granted the city an octroi, and that funds of the repairs were coming from a tax on salt. What? That was more or less what everyone else said. Catherine was furious, though. What on earth for? Well, certainly I think none of us would have noticed, but she had a point. France taxes salt very heavily, and Catherine thought it was highly unfair that the building was going to be repaired with money she said was being stolen from the poor. I must admit this is completely beyond my understanding. Everyone needs salt, and everyone in France is taxed on it equally. It's how you make food survive the winter, for one thing, but it's an incredibly useful and valuable thing. I dread to think how much we spend on salt here, to tell you the truth, but mercifully, we do not have to pay quite the same way the French do. It just seems like a petty thing to pick at. The building needed repairing, yes, but Catherine was beside herself for days. I remember her stalking around the hallways, muttering to herself in very poor French, "Abdabadabadoo," which is meant to mean, "Damn you spires," or some such. Eustace forbade her to write in the letter Eustace forbade her to write in a letter to the diocese on the subject. She was going to tell the diocese? Damn your spires? Margaret threw her head back and laughed, clearly enjoying the fond memory. The diocese? No. She was demanding to send a letter to the king. My goodness. Catherine sulked for days after Eustace told her off for that one. All over a building. It isn't about the building. It's about some very soul of the church, is what Catherine would tell you. She really found it distasteful that the repairs would be built to the expense of the people's basic needs, and wanted to make that known for anyone she could say in the matter. It wasn't the only time she got herself worked up over the building either. She heard about the last remaining ruins of the lighthouse in Alexandria being paved over to build a way for it, and she spent a whole week badgering Adela, asking if she knew enough Arabic to write her a letter, to help her write a letter to complain to the Sultan. I can understand her position, just it seems so fruitless. It sounds rather cruel to put it that way, but Margaret grinned and shifted in her seat to face me. That's the essence of most of the arguments Catherine got around here. You're not wrong, but... and so on. It sounds quite exhausting. I suddenly felt my stomach drop. Not to speak ill of her, I mean... Margaret laughed again. You're fine. People are said far worse about her while she lived. Angela once accused her of writing down her 12 conclusions. I find it rather touching that she can still put people in awkward positions like this. Her influence reaches beyond the grave. Beyond the grave? Do you believe in ghosts? Spirits? That's quite a question. I apologize if it's a touch strange to ask, but you're not the first person who has mentioned feeling Catherine's presence lingering to me, or wished aloud for it. It's not a problem. But I should warn you that if this is an extension of your practical joke, the others are going to find bringing Catherine into the proceedings very distasteful. Would you believe me if I insisted that there was no prank? I would be curious to know what other explanation you could give. If you really saw what you claimed to see, why are you still here? Why didn't you start running and stop only when you reached the next village over? I'm still mulling over the idea of running, to tell you the truth, but I don't think I could. That's interesting. Believe it or not, that makes me slightly more inclined to accept your story. Really? Very slightly. I have no explanation for what I saw, only that I saw it. A real monster menacing me with a wicked blade. It sounds absolutely chilling. The thing is, if I ran, where would I go? 2 days ago I hadn't been outside my little room. I feel like if I left, you'd be experiencing the same confusion 10 times over. Yes, that's a good way to put it. The devil you know. I understand that feeling. But you wouldn't believe I actually saw anything? You don't accept the existence of ghosts at all? Evil spirits and the like? I was practically begging for a reassurance at this point. I wouldn't say that. I saw something once. In the cellar. Late at night. A little devil with bulbous eyes and malformed teeth. In the cellars? But don't you sneak down there to raid the pantry some nights? Well, as I said, the devil you know. And sometimes I get quite hungry. You're pulling my leg, aren't you? Now, why would I do something like that? No. We sat in silence for a moment. Finally, Margaret stood up and stretched her arms above her head. I think that's enough for this heat. Now. Luncheon will start in a bit, correct? Let's go for a walk, you and me. Certainly. She walked briskly out of the chapel. I was too slow to help her with her large wooden doors, but she managed quite well enough on her own. She ushered me past, and then took a step ahead as the door closed. Margaret wanted to lead me somewhere, but I could not guess where. To tell you the truth, I've always been of mixed opinions about the existence of ghosts. I've seen so many things that end up being tricks in the light, figures in the fog, that sort of thing. For years, the knocking and scraping of the walls here kept me up at night. But these buildings were very old and not particularly well built. That's the sort of things I like to try to comfort myself with as well. But it's different when you're all alone at night, isn't it? Yes. So you believe me? Perhaps I do. Perhaps I don't. But either way, there's something I'd like to show you. We were walking up the stairs to the second floor. Hold on. We're gonna need a candle for this. She jogged into dormitories and after a moment emerged with a lit candle out of a briquette. Come with me. She took me down the hall towards the intersection where I had seen a sword-wielding specter. There's no blood or anything here. We've already looked. We're going a bit further than that. My heart jumped in my throat. Are we going down the hallway to my cell? Just about. We walked together quietly for just a little while. This is the hall. This hall always made me feel uncomfortable. For a moment, I felt affronted that Margaret would even dare talk about what the hall might make her feel in my presence, but I suppressed the urge to chastise her. Nonetheless, walking down the hallway felt more precarious than my first encounter with the stairs. I take it you didn't come to the hagioscope very often then. Not for your advice, I'm afraid. We arrived at my cell. Margaret handed me the candle and began rapping her knuckles against the stone wall. Eventually, she found whatever she was looking for. She inserted her fingers between two of the old stones and pulled. To my shock, the wall swung open to reveal a passageway wide enough just about for one person. What? There's passageways all over this place. That isn't what I wanted to show you, though. Follow me. She took the candle back and entered the narrow tunnel. I followed her nervously. Most abbeys have passages like this because there needs to be some space between walls, see? It's an architectural thing. I think it helps the air as well. That's what my father used to say anyway. So this passage isn't in of itself particularly interesting. However, we kept walking until we finally came to a corner. Here we are. She took a few steps around the bend and beckoned me to join her. Like I was saying before, I've always been non-committal about things like luck and ghosts and curses and so on. But this always bothered me, and there have been so many things happening lately for me to discount it entirely. Parts of the abbey falling down, Catherine's death, and now your ghost. By this, you mean... Come closer. She held a candle out in front of her to better illuminate what she was referring to. I try not to take this passage anymore, because this makes me nervous. I gasped when I realized what she was looking at. One of the bricks lining the passageway had been detestable shape etched into it. I did not know what it was, but it filled me with enough dread just to look at it that I knew something was wrong. Evil. My stomach churned as I remembered the Superior's words to me about the provenance of the abbey. Was the construction of the place really so mysterious? How could something like this have been allowed to make it into the very walls of the building? The works of some possessed builder, no doubt. The house of God built with no oversight and ill intent. I speak of it eloquently now, of course. However, in that moment, all that I could muster was something far less considered. Oh my God! Margaret grinned wickedly. Steady on. What is it? What was it you told me about cursing? I didn't speak a word the whole walk back to the chapel. I was deeply disturbed. I didn't know what the horrible symbol meant, and I didn't want to. One look at it was enough to tell me that something dark was at work within the walls, something I did not want to meddle with under any circumstances. We arrived at the chapel doors, and Margaret turned to me. Cheer up. It's a bit grim, but I've lived with it for ages. I try not to muck about the unknown. It doesn't muck about with me. Much, anyway. All that being said, I think I might take credit for the prank if I were you, even if it wasn't you. Why would I do something like that? I don't know. It just seems like something you'd want people to think you were capable of. You got to keep people guessing, yeah? You got to make a name for yourself. I think I'll stick to being a chronicler. Oh, right. Yes. I forgot to mention, but I'm sure you'll do great work with that. You ask good questions. It might annoy Eustace, but I think that's critical for the job. I am afraid most of the words since leaving the cell have been questions, and I'm afraid I don't have quite the same verve that Catherine seems to have had. There's no need to worry about it. Don't write like Catherine. Write like Hedwig. I bowed my head, attempted to hide my flushed cheeks. My starved pride had allowed the sliver of compliment to rush to my head. I didn't feel too chuffed for long, though, because the chapel bell had begun to ring just above us, scaring me out of my wits. I must have jumped several feet in the air out of shock. Margaret was grinning from ear to ear when I came back down to earth. I clutched my chest instinctively, doubled over, and tried to regain my composure.
Sorry! The Superior told me to run and ring the bell for luncheon. I didn't see you two there.
I could hear her voice calling out from us above, like some apologetic angel. Margaret called up in response, apparently unfazed. That's all right. How on earth did we miss you?
I came in through the back door. The superior.
I never locks it. Yeah.
I really am so sorry, Hedwig. I didn't mean to give you such a scare.
That's quite all right, Moira. Luncheon passed without much incident. Now that I no longer expected to sit through extended introductions of myself and others, I could enjoy my food in relative peace. Darcy's cooking was excellent and much appreciated, although I was beginning to realize that the emotional reservoir that eating refilled my shrinking with each passing meal. Part of this, perhaps, was still worried anticipation that someone might casually mention seeing the superior and I walk back from the hospitalum earlier. The amount of secrets I was responsible for already felt unsustainable, but the idea of those secrets coming to light was even worse. I participated in the conversation around the table superficially, just enough to avoid being asked if something was wrong. I was unsure I'd be able to lie to say no. The Bible, of course, had plenty of things about lying. Bearing false witness breaks the commandment. Although in my time locked in a cell, I had to read my musings from scholars, smarter than I, about whether or not that meant all untruths, or if the commandment was speaking strictly about matters of court. I've told you about my views on loose interpretation, but the Bible is inerrant. There is no getting around the fact that the midwives lying to the Pharaoh's men saved many lives, for example. Still, it was difficult to feel like I was acting as selflessly as they did. I felt closer to Augustine than Cassian.
This is so sad. She was ready for a forgettable luncheon.
After luncheon, we all fired out of the rectory to return to our duties. Do you want to end here? I'm not sure when the next title card thing will be.
Probably.
All right.
Seems as good a place as any. Except for all the places that are better, but that's neither here nor there. Yeah, it's pretty good so far. I don't know what to think about that evil... What was it, a safe? Just a tile?
It just seemed like I think they were referencing that it was like a witchcraft carving, like something into a brick. It looked like some sort of like a circle of demonic magic. I think is what they were referencing it to be. It just felt unsettling to her. Yeah.
Yeah,
And they didn't know what it was.
definitely not.
I'm not entirely sure what it was
Strange.
either.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, in conclusion, the stable hand did the murder.
Yeah, definitely.
It's so obvious.
Yeah. He's very guilty.
I'm just saying, I've never heard an innocent person with a voice quite like that.
I've never heard any person with a voice quite like that.
Yeah.
Guilty or innocent.
That is the question. Alright, well, you gotta get to bed. And
Yeah.
I've gotta do something.
All right.
Probably also get to bed.
Have a good night, man.
Alright, good night, everyone.
Bye, guys.